Hello Warhammer Explorers. Before we dive in, hit subscribe so the next transmission isn't lost to the warp. Every click tells me to keep building this universe with you. What if Darth Revan arrived in Warhammer 40K? Revan stands in a Rakatan chamber, feeling a scream in the Force from beyond his galaxy. If he ignores it, that scream will one day burn every world he tried to save. With Rakatan maps and a rebuilt hyperspace gate, he plots a jump not through space, but straight into the wound. The gate howls as it opens on a sea of raw thought and hate, and his mind blurs as the pressure slams back. Mask locked, sabers ready, Darth Revan steps into the roaring light as it tears him out of his own universe and hurls him into another. The void over Vandemar Prime twists. The patrol frigate Vigil of Vandemar runs a quiet watch above the hive world. Servitors chant Binharic code. Auspex screens glow with old green light. Crewmen are half asleep at their posts. Then every warning rune flares blood red. Warp surge, calls out Vox Officer Pell. His voice shakes. Not a ship translation. It is right on top of us, Commander. On the main screen, space peels open. It does not look like a normal warp tear. It is sharp and narrow, like a wound cut with a blade that knows where to hurt. Color pours out. It is not just the ugly purple red of the immaterium. There are white and violet lines that move with strange order. The ship's astropath screams and claws at her own eyes. In the center of the storm, something small falls. Not a ship, a shape. A single figure wrapped in a cocoon of invisible force drops like a burning star toward the planet below. Object is descending, Pell whispers. No known pattern, no drop pod, no lifter, just a man. Far below, in Hive Tarsis on Vandemar Prime, the sky splits. It is evening. Smog chokes the tall spires. Neon signs flicker over packed walkways. Voxcasters shout about ration quotas and tithes. A little girl named Lisa leans out of a cracked window in the mid-hive. She likes to watch the sky between towers when the lights of ships move. Tonight the clouds rip open. A streak of fire tears across the dark. The air booms. Tiles shake loose. People gasp and point. Some drop to their knees and make the sign of the Aquila, the twin-headed eagle of the Imperium. Others grab their children and run. Text scrolls across giant Auspex billboards on the sides of spires. Astropathic warning, warp instability, return to HAB units, trust in the Emperor. Lisa does not move. Her eyes are wide. She watches the falling star grow bigger and brighter as it plunges straight toward the great open plaza near the Hive's central shrine. Revan feels heat and pressure claw at his barrier. The Force here is wrong. In his own galaxy, the Force is one sea. Light and dark are currents of the same thing. Here, above this metal world, he feels a second ocean pressed on top of the first. It is not alive. It is hunger. It is a billion screaming minds mashed together into one storm. The Rakatan gate did not only take him through space, it punched through this other sea. Now it presses around him like claws. Revan tightens his will. The barrier around his body flares. The flames of re-entry lick past. His cloak whips in the roaring wind. His mask stays still. He reaches out with the Force. He tastes the world he is falling toward. There is fear. There is steel. There is faith that burns like a sun and pushes against the storm. Between the screams of the warp, he feels something else. A hot, bright pain. A woman on a lower level of the hive holds her child and says a simple prayer. Her faith gives off light that the storm hates. This is not his galaxy, but people still hope. He slams into the central plaza like a meteor. Stone tiles explode. A fountain shatters. Water blasts into steam. Shockwaves hurl market stalls into the air, but most of the force does not reach the people. Revan spreads his hands as he hits. The barrier around him blooms outward in a domed wall. The blast flows up and around the crowd, like a wave hitting rock. The dome cracks. Revan feels it. The strange warp pressure pounds on his mind. For a second, his vision doubles. In one sight, he sees the plaza. In the other, he sees it as it might be if the warp breaks through. Bodies as meat, thoughts peeled and flayed, laughter that never ends. He drives it back with a sharp breath and a single thought. No. The barrier slams shut behind the blast and shatters. He drops to one knee in a cloud of dust, cloak flaring. His chest heaves, his head rings. The scream in this place is louder than before. Around him, people stare. They see a tall figure in dark armor and layered robes, a mask of iron and black and red, a belt with two strange metal hilts hanging from it. What is that? Someone whispers. A witch, someone else says. A psyker. Autoguns chatter. Revan looks up. He has landed in the middle of a war. At one end of the plaza, ranks of soldiers in flak armor huddle behind sandbag walls and broken wagons. They wear the grey and green of Vandemar's planetary defense force. Each man and woman clutches a laser gun, a rifle that spits lines of red light. An officer shouts orders into a vox bead. At the other end, a mob of cultists rushes. Their clothes are torn. Their skin is painted with crude symbols. Some wear chains with 8-pointed stars. Others carry icons made from bones and rusted metal. Behind them, a preacher howls on a raised platform. His eyes glow with warp flame. Each word he shouts leaves a smear of wrongness in the air. Between the two lines, a heavy stubber on a makeshift mount chatters. Bullets tear across the plaza and chew up stone. A few rounds ping off Revan's armor. He rises to his feet. He has not come here for this fight. He does not know these flags or these gods. But he knows what the scream wants. It wants bodies and blood and fear. That is enough. He draws one hilt from his belt and thumbing it on. A blade of purple light snaps into the air with a hungry hiss. Every head in the plaza turns. The PDF troopers stare. They have seen power weapons before, but not like this. This blade hums. It bends the air around it. It feels like it cuts through more than just matter. The cultists stare too. Some fall to their knees. A champion, one shrieks. A gift from the gods. Revan moves. He steps forward, and the world slows around him. The force flows through his muscles. Heat and dust and bullets move in clear tracks. He raises his free hand. The heavy stubber's bullets curve away from him. They lift like a stream of metal and screech past his shoulders. They slam into the stone behind him and ricochet high. The gunner curses and swings the weapon back. Revan flicks his wrist. The stubber tears free from its mount and skids across the ground, sending cultists sprawling. He moves through them like a sharp line. The saber hums. Purple light cuts guns in half. Chains and blades and arms fall to the ground. Revan does not waste motion. No flourish, no show. One strike per enemy. A shotgun blast roars almost point blank. He twists his wrist. Pellets turn into a cloud of sparks as they hit his blade. He feels the warp around the cult preacher like a hot boil. The man's voice is wrong. Each word digs into the air. Revan leaps. He lands on the platform in a rain of broken planks. Up close, the preacher does not look human anymore. Horns of bone push through his scalp. His mouth has far too many teeth. His eyes are holes full of moving dark. He shrieks a word that is not a word. Warp fire gushes from his hands like liquid flame. Revan lifts his palm. He does not push back with raw strength. He takes the screaming power and bends it. In his own galaxy, he has parried Sith lightning. This is worse. It is wild and nasty. It tries to bite inside his mind. He shapes it anyway. The warp fire curves around him in two streams, like water split by a rock. It roars past his shoulders and slams into the empty air behind him. For a second, nothing is there. Then a hole opens. An eye looks through. It is as big as a tank. It is made of smoke and teeth and memory. It looks for a way in. Revan clenches his fist. The bent energy turns again. It snaps back into the preacher. The man arches, scream cut off. The warp hole behind him shudders. Revan steps forward and brings his saber down. He does not strike the man's flesh. He strikes the warp mark on his chest, the point where the cultist's soul has tied itself to the thing behind the eye. The purple blade passes through the mark. The eye shrieks without a mouth. The hole in reality seals like a snapped muscle. The preacher's body turns to ash and blows away. Silence falls over the plaza. Codex note: unknown Xenopsyker uses a blade of hard light and a directed warp field to sever a minor demon's anchor, closing a micro-rift without sanctioned ritual. On the PDF line, Colonel Mara Lasco lowers her field glass. She is tall, in her 40s, with a scar across her jaw from an orc raid 10 years ago. Her coat is scorched. Her command squad crouches around her, panting. They have held this plaza since dawn. Now she watches a masked stranger finish a warp-touch preacher with one clean strike. Emperor's throne, murmurs Sergeant Yeren at her side. That's a witch if I ever saw one. Mara does not answer at once. She watches the way the purple blade cuts. It does not flicker like a cheap field. It is stable. The stranger stands in the blast zone as if born there. He turns toward the PDF line. Her people raise their laser guns. Hold, Mara says. Her voice is calm but loud. Do not fire. Weapons are the ready only. Yeren stares at her. Mom, he just bent warp fire. Yes, she says. And he turned it away from my people, not into them. On her Vox bead, the command channel crackles. Hive control is screaming. Someone upspire wants answers. So does the planetary lord. Colonel Lasco, a clipped voice says, this is Sub-Governor Helbrecht. My tactici tell me an unknown psyker has just fallen from orbit into Tarsis Plaza. Report status at once. Mara looks at the masked man, who now walks slowly toward her line. Status, she says into the Vox, is that the unknown psyker just saved my entire front from a warp outbreak I could not stop. She watches the stranger, and he is walking toward our guns. Revan stops 10 paces from the sandbag wall. Dozens of red sight dots shine on his chest and head. He feels the fear behind each barrel. None of them have moved to flee. These are not the boy soldiers of some backwater rim world. These are people used to holding a line until they die. He respects that. He lowers his saber. With a hiss, the purple blade vanishes. He clips the hilt back to his belt, slow and clear, to show his empty hands. Identify yourself, Colonel Lasco calls. She stands up, last pistol in one hand, Vox unit in the other. By the authority of Vandemar Prime and the Imperium of Man, state your allegiance and rank. Imperium of Man. He tastes the words. The Force wraps around them with hard hooks. There is a weight to that name here. Revan straightens. My name is Darth Revan, he says. His voice is flat inside the mask. I serve no empire, you know. I am not your enemy. Darth, mutters Yeren. Does that mean something? Enemy classification pending, says a tinny Vox aid on Mara's bead. Mara narrows her eyes. You fell from a warp storm and bent witchfire around civilians. You could have killed my people. You didn't. She tilts her head. Why? Revan looks at the troopers behind her. Most are wounded. Bandages peek out from under armor. The plaza is full of terrified hivers. Because I do not waste lives, he says simply. Not if there is a choice. It is not a fancy motto, but it is his rule. He has broken worlds when he thought he had no choice. He has spent years trying to fix that. Here, in a new hell, the rule still stands. Mara looks at him a long moment. You are on Imperial soil, she says, and you are an unsanctioned psyker. That means I should have you shot and let the Inquisition sort the ashes. The word Inquisition hits the warp like a stone. The storm around them changes shape. But, she adds, we are 1 hour from losing this hive to those madmen, and my Thunderhawk support is tied up at the spire, so I will not waste a weapon that just dropped from the sky. Around them, PDF troopers glance at each other. She lowers her last pistol a fraction. You want to help, Darth Revan? Then you take my orders until an Inquisitor tells me otherwise. Revan feels the storm pulse again at that word. He nods once. I will help you. He looks up at the broken sky. And you will help me. There is a wound above this world that I opened. Something will come through it soon. Far above, on the black ship, Severitas, an Inquisitor listens to the same Vox feed. Inquisitor Varro Hest of the Ordo Malleus stands in a dark command gallery. The emblem of his order, the stylized eye with a skull, hangs over the main display. He is lean, in a simple coat of black. His only sign of rank is the rosette at his neck and the cold sharpness in his eyes. On the screen, picked captures from the hive show a blur of purple light cutting through cultists. They show warp fire bending around a figure in a mask. Varro's acolytes mutter prayers. That is no common witch, says one, a cleric with a bronze aquila on his chest. He walks in the flames of the immaterium and does not burn. That makes him all the more dangerous, Varro says quietly. He looks at the rune map of the system. A warp anomaly burns bright above Vandemar Prime. It spikes in ways he has never seen. There are threads, like lines of code, running through the storm. Source, he asks. Unknown, replies his data savant. The tear did not match any standard warp translation. It was thin and precise, almost coded. Varro thinks of forbidden texts, of dark tech priests who try to shape the warp. He grits his teeth. Send word to the planetary command, he says. They are not to trust this psyker. I want him contained. If he cannot be contained, he is to be destroyed. One of his acolytes hesitates. And if he continues to fight the servants of Chaos Lord? Varro looks at the image of Revan standing over the ash of the preacher. We may need a blade to cut a tumor, he says, but a blade can also turn in the surgeon's hand. Prepare our landing craft. We go to Vandemar. Back in the plaza, Revan looks up at the sky. The warp wound he left behind is no longer a thin line. It is swelling. It bulges like a blister. Purple and red light pulse around a dark center. He sends his senses outward. He feels ships in orbit, giant steel coffins, millions of souls stacked in decks. There is one ship above all others that feels like a cathedral wrapped around a gun barrel. Its crew sings thoughts of duty and fear. He also feels something else in the warp, a chant. Many deep voices speaking as one. They praise hunger and blood and change. They praise gods with 8-pointed marks. The sound travels along a path through the warp and hooks into the wound. This place is already known to the darkness, he says. Colonel Lasco steps up beside him, following his gaze. We know, she mutters. We have been fighting cults for months. Our astropaths warned of a larger incursion. The Inquisition only believed us last week. Revan shakes his head. You do not understand. My travel, the gate I used, it was sharp. It cut into this other sea. The scream I followed is using that cut. As if to answer his words, the wound in the sky flares. A thunderclap rolls across the hive. Lights flicker. The air smells like blood and ozone. Tiny black shapes spit from the wound and streak toward the planet. Colonel Lasco's Vox bead crackles with panicked voices. Colonel, this is command. Multiple atmospheric entries detected. Patterns match. Emperor, protect us. They match Astartes drop pods, but the transponders are corrupted. Chaos Marines. We are under assault by heretic Astartes. The plaza goes very quiet. Even the most hardened PDF trooper blanches. The cultists who still live start laughing. They throw themselves on the ground in joy. Revan watches the falling shapes. He does not know what Astartes are, but he feels each one like a small bright stone in the storm. They burn with belief, not the clean faith of the woman holding her child. This belief is cruel and proud. It sings of gods that feed on pain. Who is coming? Revan asks. Colonel Lasco swallows. Astartes are the Emperor's angels of death, she says. Super soldiers, gene-forged giants, living weapons. These ones are not his. Her voice is flat. They are his traitor sons. The first pod hits on the far side of the hive. It slams through hab levels, crushing steel and stone. Its retro rockets fire, burning anyone too close. It carves a crater and locks in place. Explosive bolts blow. The front of the pod slams down like a ramp. A giant in crimson power armor steps out, wreathed in smoke. His armor is covered in dark scripture, carved into the plates. Skulls hang from chains. A black 8-pointed star sits on his pauldron. A horned helm hides his face. A massive bolter weapon rests in his hands, its muzzle still glowing. Behind him, 5 more giants stomp out. Their boots break the stone. Servo motors whine. Their weapons track like hungry eyes. Down in the plaza, pict feeds on public screens flicker as they pick up the image. People see the giants. Some begin to scream. Others fall to their knees in worship or terror. These are Chaos Space Marines of the Word Bearers, says a voice on the command channel to Mara. Known warband designation, Crimson Seraphs. They carry the words of the Dark Gods into every world they burn. Mara's face goes tight. So the stories are true. Revan keeps watching the sky. More black shapes fall. Not all of them are corrupted. Some burn with a cleaner, harder light. Among the falling pods, larger forms descend. Gunships like flying bricks with wings. Their hulls gleam in bright yellow, scarred and patched, but proud. On each side, a fist emblem shines. A new voice booms over the city Vox. This is Captain Hillian of the Sons of Dawn, it says stern and calm. Hail, Vandemar Prime. Hold your lines. The Adeptus Astartes answer your cry. A golden Thunderhawk gunship roars over the plaza. Its engines scream. Its hull bears the black fist of the Sons of Dawn. A Space Marine chapter that traces its bloodline to the Emperor's son, Rogel Dawn. Lysa, the little girl, lies on the floor of her hab now. Her mother drags her away from the window as vibrations shake the walls. She still peeks out. She sees the gunship flash past. She sees for a moment a row of giants inside, armor bright, helmets like the faces of statues. She also sees, in the plaza below, the masked stranger standing in the open with the colonel. Even from up here, he looks steady, like he expected all of this. Her mother pulls her away. Don't look, she says. Pray. They kneel on the cracked floor and clutch a chipped Aquila charm together. Outside, war comes down. Inside, a stranger from another galaxy takes his first steps into the Emperor's realm. The Thunderhawk lands at the edge of the plaza. Dust and papers whip up in circles as the engines wind down. Hydraulic ramps hiss. Servitors clank. The Vox fills with clipped orders. Perimeter 300 degrees. Secure the witch. Protect the colonel. Revan watches. Out of the gunship strides a space marine. He's a giant, taller than Revan even in power armor. Yellow ceramite plates cover him, each as thick as a bunker wall. His fist emblem is painted in stark black on his shoulder. A chainsword as long as a man rests at his hip, and a bolter hangs from his chest. His helmet is off. His face is broad, scarred and calm. His eyes lock at once on Revan. Behind him, 4 more Marines step out and fan in a half circle. Their movements are very controlled. They look like walking fortresses. Revan can feel them in the Force. They are like pillars, not as bright as Jedi, not as sharp as Sith, but very, very grounded. Their belief in their Emperor is a steel rod through their souls. The giant steps up beside Colonel Lasco. "Colonel," he says. His voice is like a stone grinding. "I am Brother Captain Gaius Helion. We heard your plea. You have done well to hold this hive so long." Mara salutes. "Thank you, Captain." She jerks her chin toward Revan. "This is the Psyker who just sealed a warp breach and killed a preacher of the Dark Gods. He fell from the sky." Helion looks up at the torn clouds. "I saw," he says. Then he turns fully toward Revan. For a moment, the plaza shrinks. Revan stands in his dark robes and mask. Helion stands in bright yellow armor. They are 2 different myths, facing each other on a broken stone floor in a dirty hive. "What are you?" Helion asks. There is no fear in his tone, only curiosity and the weight of duty. Revan answers with the same calm he used with Mara. "I am Darth Revan. I came from another galaxy to follow a scream in the fabric of reality. I am not aligned with your Imperium, but I will stand against the scream." Helion's brow creases. "Another galaxy," he repeats, as if tasting the idea. "Impossible." He looks into Revan's presence. He does not have the Force to feel it, but he has lived his life beside Psykers. He knows power when he sees it. "Yet you are here," he says, "and you stand against chaos. That puts us, for now, on the same side." Revan nods once. Helion glances at Mara. "Inquisitor Hest is inbound," he says. "He will not be so flexible." Mara snorts very softly. "I know." Helion looks back at Revan. "Until he arrives, I will use any weapon the Emperor places in my hand." He points toward the distant columns of smoke rising from other drop zones. "The Crimson Seraphs will try to turn this world into a shrine of their foul gods. They will use your tear as a gate. That cannot stand." Revan stiffens. "My tear," he repeats quietly. He lets the guilt wash over him. He did this. He cut the wound. The scream used him. "I will close it," he says. Helion nods. "Good." He taps a rune on his vombrace. Then, Darth Revan of nowhere, stand in the line with the Sons of Dawn. He looks past Revan at the hivers and troopers. His voice rises. "This hive is not yet lost," he booms. "You will hold your streets. You will hold your shrines. You will hold your families. For the Emperor." The PDF cheers, tired but fierce. Revan does not cheer, but he watches the way their hope rises when they look at Helion, the way the warp shrinks from their unity. This faith is a weapon as real as his saber. The ground shakes as more pods land. The first clashes with the Chaos Marines are happening in other districts. Vox channels fill with desperate reports. Whole hab blocks are erased in bursts of bolter fire and warp flame. Inquisitor Varro's shuttle knifes down through the mess. its black hull shedding flak as if it were dust. Inside, Varro stands with one hand on an overhead bar. Beside him kneel two grey knights in polished silver armour, helms sealed, weapons across their knees. They are the Ordo Malleus's chosen demon hunters, Astartes who wield both gun and sanctioned psychic talent. One of them speaks in a voice like distant thunder. "My Lord Inquisitor, do you believe the reports? A psyker from beyond the stars." Varro's jaw tightens. "I believe there is an anomaly," he says. "I believe it came through a rune wound in the warp that was not made by any ritual of ours. That is enough." He looks out a narrow view slit at the torn sky. "If this Revan fights the dark gods, we will let him fight," he continues. "And then we will decide whether he is a tool to be used, a soul to be redeemed, or a disease to be cut out." He closes his eyes for a moment and whispers a quick prayer to the Emperor. "Armor your servant's mind," he says, "and give me the strength to do what must be done." In the plaza's temporary command post, a map flickers. Colonel Lasco, Captain Hellion, and Darth Revan stand around a crude hollow table. The image is fuzzy. The hive's levels stack in lines of light. Red runes show chaos drop zones. Yellow runes show imperial forces. The Crimson Seraphs are focusing on the shrine districts and the lower manufactorums, Mara says, pointing. They want the shrines for their rituals and the factories for bodies and materiel. Hellion nods. Their High Priest champion will go for the Grand Basilica of the Emperor's Wounds, he says. It is the largest temple in the hive. Break it, and they break the people. Revan studies the map. And the tear. Mara taps an icon high above, in the upper atmosphere, directly over the basilica. Revan notes the line in the force. The wound hangs over the temple like a bruise. If they anchor a larger gate there, he says, you will not just lose the hive, you will lose the world. Helion's eyes harden. Then we will not let them anchor it. Mara glances between them. She is still a human officer in a room with gods of war and a strange witch, but she keeps her voice steady. We have 3 problems, she says. 1. Stop the Crimson Seraphs from reaching the basilica. 2. Evacuate as many civilians as we can from the likely kill zones. 3. Deal with you. She nods at Revan. He inclines his head slightly. Then let us speak of the 3rd problem last, he says. First, we stop the slaughter. Mara snorts. You sound like one of our saints. I am no saint, Revan says. He thinks of Malachor Fifth. I know what happens when you choose to win by burning worlds. Hellion hears something in his voice. You have broken planets before, the captain says. It is not a question. Yes. Revan does not flinch. And I will not do it again if there is any other way. Hellion studies him, then looks back at the map. The first wave of my brothers will hold the outer approach routes here and here, he says, pointing. We are few, but each of us is a fortress. The PDF will fill the gaps. Revan, your talents. How far can you move? How quickly can you be where the line is about to break? Revan thinks of the Force as he knows it, overlaid with this warp. He can leap, bend, crush, but every time he pushes against that screaming sea, it pushes back. Close, he says, but not everywhere. When I use my power, that other sea presses into my mind. If I push too hard, it may find a way in. Mara frowns. You mean you can turn? Yes, he says it plainly. If I let another will ride the power I use, I could become what I am here to fight. Silence falls for a moment. Hellion breaks it. Then we will use you like we use any sacred relic or dangerous weapon, he says. We will point you at the worst of the foe when the cost is worth it, and we will watch you. Mara nods. I can spare a veteran squad to act as your escort, she says. And a Vox to call you to the hotspots. You will not move alone. Revan feels a faint, strange warmth. It has been a long time since anyone spoke of him like a tool to be guided, not just feared or worshipped. Agreed, he says. The ground shakes again. A runner bursts into the command post, panting. Colonel, he gasps. Chaos warband sighted in Sector 17. They are moving fast toward the Grand Basilica. Local PDF are breaking. Civilians are still inside the shrine. Mara swears under her breath. Hillion's eyes blaze. Chaos will not take the Emperor's house, he growls. He looks at Revan. Here is your first true test in the Imperium, Lord of Nowhere. Will you stand in a holy place for a god you do not know? Revan meets his gaze. If innocents die there, it does not matter whose god owns the stones, he says. I will stand. Hillion nods, satisfied. Then to the Basilica, he says. By the time Inquisitor Hest arrives, we will have something to show him. He slams a fist to his chest. Sons of Dawn to war. His Marines answer as one. For Dawn, for the Emperor. Revan draws both sabers this time. One purple, one blue. The twin blades cast strange light over the grim faces around him. He takes a breath and feels the warp scream. He also feels the tiny bright lights of people praying in the basilica, unaware of the giants marching toward them. I will not waste lives, he whispers again, his simple code. Then he strides out with the angels of death into the burning hive. The road to the basilica is a tunnel of war. Revan runs at the front with a veteran PDF squad. Captain Helion and his 4 sons of Dawn thunder beside him. Their armored boots crack tiles. Above, the torn sky glows dull red. Alarms wail from vox masts on every block. They pass burning shrines, small ones, just brass aquilers and candles in wall niches. Each time, Helion glances at them. His jaw tightens, but he does not slow. There are too many fires to stop at each one. Ahead, the Grand Basilica of the Emperor's Wounds rises from the hive like a stone mountain. Its front wall is a vast image of the Emperor carved in relief. One hand outstretched, one pierced by a spear. Dozens of towers climb from its roof, each capped with a golden eagle. Huge stained glass windows show saints and battles. Broad marble steps lead up to a set of doors big enough for a Titan's foot. Smoke curls over it now. Last fire flashes in the narrow streets. Revan hears people screaming, praying and dying. He feels fear like static at the edge of his mind. Civilians? He asks without slowing. Yes, Colonel Lasco pants. She runs a few steps behind, helmet under one arm. The basilica can hold 50,000. On high feast days it is full. Today it is full for the wrong reason. They ran there when the alarm sounded. Revan looks at the walls. And the enemy? Helion points with his chainsword. Coming from the Manufactorum Quarter, heavy infantry and armor. They will try to encircle and crush us against the basilica steps. Standard word-bearer tactic. Trap the faithful in their own temple and turn their prayers into a mockery. Revan's eyes narrow behind his mask. Then we change the pattern. They reach the outer square. It should be a place of calm. It is a broad plaza with fountain pools and statues of saints. Vendors would normally sell icons and food here. Now it is a killing field. PDF squads crouch behind overturned carts, shrine wagons, and makeshift barricades. They fire down long lanes between hab blocks into advancing cultists. Bodies litter the paving. A burnt-out tank smokes near the center. At the far end, the first Chaos Marines appear. They are crimson giants, like the ones from the Pict feeds, but closer. Their armor is covered in crawling script. Small demons of fire flicker around their pauldrons, feeding on the words. Their bolters cough out explosive shells that burst with wet, meaty cracks. Behind them, heavy guns roll forward on looted tracks. Mutant crews push them and shriek hymns to dark gods. The basilica doors are still open. Revan sees a stream of people struggling up the steps. Priests and sisters of battle in white and red robes try to hold order, pushing the crowd inside and shouting prayers. A statue of the Emperor looms over them all, face stern and distant. "Hellion," Mara calls. "My people will break if those giants hit them head on." "They will not reach your people," the Space Marine captain replies. His voice is very calm. He turns to his brothers. "Form wedge on me. We drive into their spear tip." The Sons of Dawn move into a tight formation. Hellion at the point. Bolters lock. Chainswords wind to life. Revan steps to Hellion's side. "Your armor can take their fire," he says. "So can mine for a time. But the people behind us cannot. We need a shield." Hellion glances at the basilica's huge stone front. "We have no void shields," he says. "No titan, no defense grid, only faith and flesh." Revan reaches out with the force. He feels the basilica like a weight behind him. It is more than stone. It is a node in the warp, a knot of faith. Every candle, every whispered prayer, every martyr's story told in that place has left a trace. He remembers Rakatan machines that pulled power from stars. This is not a machine, but it is a focus. He spreads his hands. "Then we borrow your faith," he says. The Shatter world dims for him. Noise drops away. He feels only the force and the scream layer around it. He reaches back, not into the warp's raw red sea, but into the bright line that runs through it from the basilica. Thousands of minds are praying inside. They do not know him. They pray to a golden throne and a silent God. He does not take their prayers. He does not push words into them. He simply shapes the pressure. The basilica's front carvings glow faintly. The huge stone emperor's outstretched hand seems to flex. Light flows from the doors and from every window like steam from boiling water. It swirls around Revan and the soldiers at the front. A thin, curved wall of pale light forms in the air. It is not a perfect barrier. It flickers. It leans heavily on the faith that fuels it. But it is wide enough to cover the front squads and the Sons of Dawn. It hums with a low, steady sound. Revan sways. Sweat beads under his mask. The warp screams and snaps at the edges of the shield, angry at being pushed aside. Behind him, PDF troopers gasp. "It's like a void field," someone whispers, "but it feels warm." Hellion looks at the pale wall and nods once. "We move," he says. "Stay close to the shield, guardsman. If you fall behind, you die." He lifts his chainsword. "For the Emperor, advance." They walk straight into the fire. Bolter shells scream in. Las beams flare. Autogun rounds buzz. Most hit the curved wall of light. Each impact makes it ripple like water. Flashes bloom across its surface. A few shells pass the shield where it flickers thin and explode among the front rank. Men die, but many more live. Revan keeps walking. Each step costs him. The shield is not just made of his will. It is a channel. It pulls on the basilica's faith, uses it to deflect metal and warp energy. He feels every soul behind him like a soft pressure in his mind. Each time someone inside the basilica whispers, "Emperor, protect us," the shield brightens. Each time someone panics and curses, it dims. He cannot fix their fear. He can only work with it. The Sons of Dawn hit the first line of cultists like a falling wall. Chainswords bite, bolters roar. Yellow armor wades through frail bodies. Revan moves with them, but differently. He darts forward and sideways, sabers flashing blue and purple. He cuts gun barrels. He shears off hands that hold grenades and flicks the explosives back into enemy clusters with a twist of the force. A Chaos Marine aims a bolter at a group of PDF in the back rank. Revan feels the intent. He drops the front of the shield for a breath, letting 3 shells through. They slam into his own barrier around his body and burst with a roar. He grunts, arms straining as he reshapes the blast. The explosion's shockwave curves and flows sideways. It hammers into a squad of cultists who are circling to flank. They fly like dolls, bones snapping. The PDF behind him flinch, but they are untouched. Revan sets the front of the shield back up with a gasp. Helion glances at him. An odd shield, he says between shots. Wasteful, perhaps, but effective. Revan's voice is tight. Waste is when you let the wrong people die. A crimson giant steps into their path. He is taller and broader than the others. His helmet is crowned with a spiked halo. A black book is chained to his chest. Runes writhe across his armor like worms. He raises his hand. A bolt of warp flame spits from it. The flame hits the shield and sticks. It claws at the light, eating its edges. It is not normal fire. It burns in colors that hurt the eye. It spells words as it moves, words that promise power and demand worship. Revan feels the pressure spike. The Basilica's line of faith strains. The warp behind the flame howls with glee. Helion snarls. "Dark Apostle," he says, "a word-bearer priest." The Apostle's voice booms over the square. "Children of the Corpse Emperor," he calls. "Why kneel to a dead thing when the gods answer you with fire? See how your saint relies on our power to make his shield." Revan can feel the truth in the taunt. He is bending warp flame. If he lets it eat into the shield, it will chew right into the Basilica's prayer line and down into the people. He needs to change the shape. He drops the front of the shield completely. For a heartbeat, they are naked. Bolter shells and lasfire streak toward them. Revan thrusts his will into the warp flame itself. He thinks of coding through a broken system, of taking corrupted lines and twisting them so they cancel each other out. He grabs the burning letters in the warp and bends half of them back against the other half. The flame shrieks. It twists into a tight knot above his hand. It tries to bite him. It tries to write its words into his mind. He squeezes. The knot implodes with a sharp crack. The energy turns inward and collapses into a point of nothing. For a heartbeat, there is a tiny black dot in the air. Then it pops. A shockwave of cold rushes out from the point. It is not freezing, but it kills warp energy in a circle. The Dark Apostle's flame goes out. The minor demons around his armor vanish with shocked squeals. The blast rolls over the Chaos Marines and their mutant guns. It does not tear flesh. It rips at their weapons' demon-bound ammo and their stolen charms. Bolter rounds misfire. Sigils fade. The guns of the heavy teams crack and spit steam. Helion does not waste the opening. "Now," he roars. The Sons of Dawn charge. PDF troopers pour fire through the gaps Revan just made. Chaos Marines stagger as their gun spirits falter. 2 fall under massed lasfire and bolter shots. The Dark Apostle snarls and raises his book, starting a new litany. Revan is already moving. He leaps. He lands in front of the Apostle, sabers crossing to catch a swinging Crozius mace. The weapon is a staff topped with a heavy head shaped like a shrine. It crackles with raw warp power. Each hit leaves, after images in the air. Revan's blades hiss where they meet it. Sparks of purple, blue and bloody red spray. The Apostle's voice booms up close. "You are not of this galaxy," he growls. I smell the wrong stars on your soul. You should not be here. Revan pushes back, forcing the mace aside. You should not be here either, he replies. You have no right to these people. They begged for us. The apostle laughs. Their fear fed the gods long before I came. He swings again. Warp power leaps from the mace head and claws at Revan's barriers. It is like standing in front of the Rakatan gate as it opened, but dirtier. Revan ducks under the blow and kicks out at the giant's knee with the force. He does not try to break the armor. He pushes at the joint. The leg buckles a tiny bit. It is enough to throw the apostle off balance. Revan steps past him, turns, and slices the chains holding the black book. The book falls. For a heartbeat, the apostle freezes. Revan flicks his hand. The book slides across the ground and lifts into the air beside him. It wriggles. Mouths open on its cover and shriek curses. Little claws poke out of its pages. Revan clamps it in a tight bubble of force. He does not try to destroy it. He folds it. He takes its screaming presence in the warp and bends it back into itself, like he did with the flame, but slower. Page by page, he forces each bound demon, each curse, to lie against its opposite. The book shrinks. The apostle staggers, momentarily stunned as the link to his favorite toy snaps. The bubble around the book collapses to a tight, dull grey sphere the size of a fist. Revan lets it drop. It hits the paving with a heavy sound and does not move. The apostle roars and charges. Helion hits him from the side like a hammer. Chainsword teeth bite into crimson armor. The apostle's crozius smashes into Helion's pauldron. Both giants reel. Helion's brothers pour bolter fire into the apostle's joints at close range. Revan steps back, breathing hard. He looks at the basilica steps. Civilians still stream inside. The shield over the square flickers but holds. The worst of the enemy weapons are dead. The line is stabilizing. He has done what he needed to do. He does not finish the apostle. That is Helion's kill, a clash between faiths that belong to this galaxy. He turns instead to the nearest heavy gun team, frozen and staring at the fight, and sends a tight command through the force. Stop watching, he says, voice like iron in their minds. Shoot. They flinch and obey. Autocannon rounds tear through the remaining cultists. The front of the Chaos push crumbles. The word-bearers pull back a short distance, hauling their wounded with them, and begin to regroup. The square belongs to the Imperium again, for now. Codex note. Subject Revan demonstrates advanced control of warp vectors, using local faith resonance as a shield and folding a possessed heretic text into neutral mass, rather than simple destruction. Risk of collateral warp backlash is high. Results suggest deep but alien understanding of the Immaterium. The Grand Basilica's main hall smells of incense, sweat, and fear. The victory in the square was real, but limited. The word-bearers are not gone. They simply pulled back to regroup and plan again. Outside, the crack in the sky still bulges and spits smaller demonic storms. Inside, thousands of people kneel between pillars as tall as hive towers. They clutch icons, they cry, they whisper prayers into their hands. At the far end, the altar glows. Behind it, a giant statue of the Emperor sits on a stone throne, sword across his lap. Stained glass windows throw bloody light across his face. Revan stands in a side chapel turned into a command room. Picked screens and hollow slate maps sit on the old stone altar. Wounded soldiers lie on pews as medici work. A sister of battle in white armor with red trim walks through, murmuring reassurances and blessings to the injured. Colonel Lasco stands at the altar, helmet off, hair damp with sweat. Captain Helion stands beside her, armor scratched and smoking. Their eyes are on a new arrival, Inquisitor Varro Hest. He looks smaller here than on his black ship. The basilica's vast arches dwarf him, but the rosette on his chest and the grey knights at his sides give him weight that fills the room. 2 grey knights in silver armour stand like statues behind him. Their armour is covered in purity seals and engraved prayers. Force halberds rest in their gauntleted hands. Their presence smooths the warp around them, like polished stone in a stream. Revan can feel them from across the chapel. Their minds are hard and clear. They are psychers too, but their power runs along rails of discipline and worship. Varro's gaze rests on Revan's mask. "So," he says, "you are the one who fell from the sky." Revan meets his eyes. "You are the one who speaks for this Imperium's hidden knives." Mara winces just a little at his bluntness. Helion's mouth twitches. Varro does not smile. "I speak for the Emperor's will as best a man can," he says, "and for his fear. Do not be proud of drawing the Inquisition's eye, stranger. It is not a gift." Revan inclines his head a fraction. "Then let us not waste time on insults," he says. "You know I closed one breach. You know I helped hold this square. You also know the tear above this world is my fault. We can talk about blame, or we can fix it." Varro's jaw tightens at the word fault. "You admit it," he says. "Good. That will make the trial shorter." Helion clears his throat. "Lord Inquisitor," he says formal, "without this man's shield, my brothers and I would have taken far heavier losses. Thousands more civilians would be dead. The Basilica might have fallen in the first push." The Sister of Battle steps closer. Her name is Canoness Elira. Her eyes are tired but bright. "He turned the flames away," she says quietly. "I saw it from the steps. He did not have to. Many champions of strange powers would have let the fire eat us. This one did not." Varro looks between them, then back at Revan. "Good intentions do not matter if the weapon is cursed," he says. "Chaos often comes with help in its hand." Revan's voice stays level. "And your god never sends hard choices?" he asks. "No help that costs you later?" Varro's eyes flash. "Mind your tone, alien." Mara cuts in. "My lord," she says, "with respect, I do not care if he is a saint or a sinner right now. I care that my world is still burning." She taps a map rune. "The Crimson Seraphs are regrouping in the lower manufactorums. They are trying to cut us off from the Basilica and pin us here. We need a plan." They gather around the holomap. Lights show the hive's levels. Red patches mark chaos-held zones. Yellow marks Imperial control. Several areas blink amber, contested. Varro studies it. He has the look of a man used to ugly decisions. "We are outnumbered on the ground," he says. "Even with the Sons of Dawn, our best-case projection is a slow retreat from level to level, while the enemy turns each block into a shrine. The tear above us will widen while we bleed. If it reaches critical mass, this world is a lost cause." Mara stiffens. "Vandemar Prime is not lost," she says. "We can still push them back. We just need more time, more men, more faith." Varro cuts in. "You have faith, Colonel. I do not doubt that. But faith does not change math. If we cannot stop the ritual that uses that tear as a gate, I am bound by my office to consider exterminatus." He says the word calmly. The room goes very quiet. Revan does not know the term, but the force jumps when Varro speaks it. The people around him react like he has just said death for more than a city. Canoness Elira whispers, "You would burn an entire world of the Emperor's faithful. If the choice is one doomed world or 10 more falling under chaos, yes," Varro says. There is no joy in his tone. only grim duty. That is the arithmetic of survival in this age. Revan feels something cold settle in his chest. He remembered Malachor of Vir, a superweapon, a choice to sacrifice one world to end a war. The scream of the Force when it fired. "You would do what I did," he says softly. Varro looks at him. "I do what I must," he says. "So do you, I think." Hellion speaks. "My chapter does not throw away worlds lightly," he says. "We were made to hold walls, not burn them. If there is any chance to save Vandemar, we will take it." He looks at Revan. "You claim you can close the tear," he says. "Is that true?" Revan thinks carefully. He will not promise what he cannot do. "I can try," he says. "The cut was made with a Rakatan gate that is not here, but the mark of its path remains. I can use it as a handle. If I reach the right point in the warp and push hard enough, I can stitch the cut smaller, maybe closed." "Cost?" Varro asks at once. "To you, to us." Revan does not lie. "Pain," he says. "Risk. Each time I push against that screaming sea, it tries to push into me. If I use all my strength at once, I might lose myself. And if I use your faith as fuel again, I might damage it, turn it. Faith is not a toy." Canoness Illyra nods slowly. "He speaks truth," she says. "I felt the strain through the prayers. It was not holy light alone. It was something else, shaped by our songs." Varro's gaze is sharp. "So to save this world, we may have to trust a stranger who pulls on our faith like a wire," he says, "and give him access to a wound that already leads chaos into our realm." He looks at Hellion and Mara. "From where I stand," he says, "this is not mercy versus cruelty. It is caution versus risk. If we put everything on this Revan and he falls, the tear becomes a gate, and Vandemar is lost. If we do not, I may have to burn the world before that happens. Which is the wiser path?" Mara looks stricken. "You are speaking of killing billions to avoid a chance that our gamble fails," she says. "Where is mercy in that?" "Mercy is for the many," Varro replies, "not the few. The Imperium has trillions of souls. Chaos wants them all. I will not hand entire sectors to the enemy because I could not bear to press a button once." Revan steps in, voice quiet but firm. "In my galaxy, I chose to end a war with a weapon that tore the life from a world," he says. "I told myself it would save more lives in the long run. I still hear the echoes of those I killed. They do not care that my numbers were correct." Varro's eyes narrow. "And if you had not fired," he asks, "would your war have burned on until more worlds died?" "Yes," Revan says. "Maybe. Probably. That is the trap. Numbers always say the sacrifice is worth it. But when you start to think that way all the time, every hard choice becomes easier. Soon you are burning worlds not as a last resort, but as your first move." Hellion nods once. "We are the Emperor's shield," he says. "We break when we must, but we do not choose to break first." Varro looks at all three of them. He does not concede, but he listens. "This is the conflict," he says. "Mercy versus survival. One world versus many. Any fool can cry, save everyone. Any coward can cry, burn it all. My job is to stand between those cries." He lets out a slow breath. "Very well. We will not call exterminatus yet. We will try your plan, Revan. But I will set limits. The limits come like chains. You will not act without escort," Varro says. "Grey Knights and Sons of Dawn will watch you at all times. If I say stop, you stop. If my psychers feel you tip toward corruption, they will end you." One of the Grey Knights speaks, voice calm inside his helm. "Do not doubt it, stranger," he says. "We are not your students. We are the Emperor's blades. If you fall, we will cut deep." Revan nods slowly. Reasonable, he says. You fear what you do not control. Varro's eyes flash, but he does not deny it. This is not about fear, he says. It is about duty. Freedom is a pretty word, Lord Revan, but in this age it often means let evil spread unchecked. I cannot allow that. Revan folds his arms. In my time as a Jedi, then as a Sith, I saw what strict codes can do, he says. Jedi rules told us not to love, not to act in anger, not to touch the dark. So we waited too long to stop a war. Sith codes told us to seize power at any cost. So we burned galaxies in the name of strength. He looks at Varro and Helion. You live by doctrine, he says. Duty, law. Those things can hold back monsters. They can also choke good men. You talk of burning a world because your book says it is better to lose 1 than 10. But your book cannot see every path. Canoness Illyra speaks softly. Sometimes the book is all we have, she says. Out here the warp whispers. Demons wear friendly faces. We hold to the Emperor's word so we do not lose ourselves. If we loosen that grip, how do we know where to stop? Revan nods. That is the fear. I respect it. But you already had to bend your rules today. You let an unsanctioned psyker shape your faith light. You did it because you saw people dying. That is mercy. I am saying, you will face choices like that again. You need doctrine and mercy, or you become what you hate. Varro studies him. You fear losing yourself, he says. I see it in how you talk about codes. Did someone rewrite your mind once, Revan from beyond? Revan's hands tighten. He remembers the council, the bright room, the voices, the blank space where a past should be. Yes, he says simply. They took my memories to stop a war. They thought they were saving me. It almost broke me again. Varro nods slowly. Then you understand why I cannot simply let you roam, he says. Correlation. You are powerful and have been twisted before. Risk. You can be twisted again. I will not wipe your mind, but I will bind you with orders and watchers. That is my compromise. Helion looks between them. We can argue codes until the hive falls, he says. We have the shape of it now. Varro will not burn the world yet. Revan will not submit to a mind wipe. We move with this in place. Mara blows out a breath. Fine, she says. Good talk. Everyone is a little unhappy. That means it's fair. A faint smile touches Helion's scarred face. Even Varro's mouth twitches at the Colonel's dry tone. The moment breaks. Then the Vox screams, Command, this is Manufactorum Sigma 7. A panicked voice crackles. Chaos forces have breached the lower lines. They have a null with them. Our psychers are... The transmission cuts off in a burst of static and a high, thin scream. Varro's head snaps up. Repeat, Sigma 7, he snaps. Define null. A different voice comes on. It is cold, shaking. Lord Inquisitor, this is sanctioned Psyker Keln, it says. We felt, Emperor preserve us. We felt nothing. It was like the warp died. A figure walked with the word bearers. Our powers failed in a radius around it. Those who tried to push harder started bleeding from the eyes. One's mind cracked. I barely shielded a handful. The voice hitches. They are heading toward the transit shafts under the basilica. They want up. Revan feels a strange hole open at the edge of his senses. It is not just an absence. It is an active denial. Where the force should flow, there is a blank patch that eats feeling. It moves slowly through the hive, toward them. He almost sways. His connection to the force stutters and crackles like a damaged cable. What is that? He murmurs. Varro's face has gone pale. A pariah, he says. A blank. One whose soul does not touch the warp. The enemy must have bound one to their cause, with scripture and pain. Helion's eyes harden. The word-bearers learn, he says. They saw how you bent the warp against them. Now they bring a weapon that eats it. Revan reaches out again. He tries to sense the blank presence. His mind slides off it, leaving a headache behind. He realizes, with a cold twist, that this weapon does not just block his power. It hurts him more than others because he leans on the warp in a strange way. He is a bridge between his galaxy's force and this realm's sea. A hole in that bridge shakes both sides. Canoness Elira whispers a prayer. "Emperor, shield our souls," she says. "If they bring that thing into the Basilica, our confessors and psychers will be blind." Varro looks at Revan. "This is the smarter foe," he says quietly. Chaos learns, "You are not the only one who can turn a tool." Inquisitor Varro dictates a quick note into his Rosarius Vox as acolytes hurry around him. Subject Revan channels the warp in a form I would call structured, more like a coded flow than the wild draw of common witches, he says. He can pull on faith resonance and raw warp energy and fold them without standard litanies. This makes him flexible and dangerous. He glances at a hollow of the Manufactorum district, where the null zone creeps closer. However, he continues, this also means his power has a clear counter. Blanks and null fields strike at the connection he uses. Where a normal psyker might be damped by a pariah, Revan appears to be shaken at a deeper level, as his bridge between force and warp is cut. A smart enemy with access to anti-psyker assets can therefore hurt him badly without ever touching his armor. He pauses. Conclusion. Revan's advantage over common sorcerers is real, but not absolute. In any plan, we must assume Chaos will deploy blanks, hexed scripture, or other conceptual weapons that attack his identity and connection, not just his flesh. Back in the Basilica, plans shift. Varro points at the map. The enemy null and its escort must not reach these shafts, he says. If they bring that blank into the Basilica's lower levels, they can silence our psychers, twist our wards, and perhaps even shatter the relics we keep here. We will lose our spiritual center before the larger war is decided. Helion nods. We meet them below, he says. Away from the crowds, away from the main shrine. My brothers and I can fight in those tight tunnels. He looks at Revan. Your power will be weak near the null, he says. You will feel exposed, but your blades are still sharp. Can you fight without your tricks? Revan thinks of his old training. Before he learned to twist the force like code, he learned to move, to swing a saber, to read a foe's stance. Yes, he says, but you should not build your plan around my gifts if they will be cut. Varro's eyes gleam. This is where doctrine has a use, he says. The Grey Knights have trained to fight demons in null zones before. We know how to work with little or no warp access. One of the Grey Knights inclines his helm. We will lead the strike through the lower tunnels, he says. Our wards are carved into our armor. Our faith does not depend on the warp's noise. We can stand near the blank longer than most. Mara nods. I will hold the upper levels, she says. If you fail, I will at least slow them before they reach the main hall. Canoness Elira presses a hand to the stone altar. I will keep the people praying and steady, she says. If we panic, the enemy wins even before they reach us. Revan watches them all. They are harsh. They speak of burning worlds. They obey a silent emperor. But they also stand. They do not run. He feels the blank approach. Inside he feels another thing. The old fear of losing himself if his powers are taken. The mask, the codes, the memories he has built since his mind was cut. If the Force goes silent, who is he? He grips his sabers tight. If I fight near this null, he says, I may feel lesser, but I will not run. You wanted a dangerous tool with limits, Inquisitor. Here I am. Varro nods. Good, he says. Then let us find out whether mercy and caution can hold hands in a tunnel full of traitors. The wharf of Vandemar shifts from open squares and shining shrines to dark, narrow shafts under the basilica, where a stranger from another galaxy will soon face an enemy that can reach past his armor and strike at the root of what makes him Revan. Up to now, a stranger from another galaxy has fallen onto Vandemar Prime, helped hold a shrine from Chaos Marines, and bound himself to a fragile pact with an Inquisitor, a Space Marine captain, and a war-weary colonel. Now he walks into the dark under the basilica, toward a weapon made to kill everything that makes him Darth Revan. The access shaft smells of dust and oil. A cage lift rattles down through the hive's bones. Flickering lumen strips paint everyone in sickly yellow. Revan stands shoulder to shoulder with giants. Captain Hellion of the Sons of Dawn, 2 more battle brothers in yellow armor, 2 grey knights in silver, ward-laced plate, Inquisitor Varro in his black coat, Colonel Mara Lasco with a shotgun slung across her chest, a single PDF guide with a lumen lantern and trembling hands. Canoness Illyra stayed above to hold the basilica. She blessed each of them before the gate slammed shut. Remember, Varro says over the rattling, standard tactics do not work down here. The enemy knows our habits. He stabs a finger at the small hollow slate in his palm. A wireframe shows tunnels, cisterns, and crypt chambers under the basilica. The Crimson Seraphs are moving a pariah down this route, he says. Its null field kills warp use in a radius. Our psychers cannot scry. Our artillery cannot fire without collapsing the basilica. We cannot simply drown them in shells. Brother Justicar Saren, the lead Grey Knight, nods. His voice is calm through his helm vox. The Apostle will stay just outside the Blank's aura, he says. Close enough to benefit from the silence around us, far enough to keep his own warp gifts. Hellion grunts. He will stand on firm ground while we fight with one hand bound, he says. Cowardly, but smart. Varro looks up at Revan. Your powers will fail before ours, he says without malice. Your force is already strained on the barrier between worlds. When the pariah comes close, that bridge will shake first. You must be ready to fight as a man, not as a myth. Revan feels the faint tremor in his senses even now. A hole far away, but growing. I have been a man before, he says. I survived it. Mara studies him. What about the tear? She asks. If this null gets under it, can they twist it? Revan thinks. The tear is up there, over the basilica, he says, nodding at the ceiling. It is a cut through that screaming sea. Down here under the shrine, the warp is thick with faith and old bones. If they stand the null in the right place, they can punch a clean tunnel between my cut and the basilica's heart. Then their god things can walk it. Saren's hands clench on his halberd. We must not let that happen, he says. If they link a tear and a shrine, this world becomes a beacon of filth. Varro's voice is flat. So we intercept them in the maintenance junction before the lower crypts, he says. Limited space, no heavy guns. Their null will hurt us, but the choke point means they cannot bring their full numbers to bear. Hellion's scarred face is set. Good, he says. I prefer killing traitors where they cannot run. The lift shudders to a stop. Doors, Mara calls. Lanterns up, stay tight. The gates grind open on the underhive's veins. The tunnels are old. Brick arches drip with condensed moisture. Rusted pipes run along the walls. Narrow service walkways span dark drops where forgotten machines mutter. Saints' faces carved in stone look down from alcoves, half covered in grime. Makeshift candles burn under some, left by workers who pray on their way to shift. The air is thick with the smell of oil, incense, and old dust. The PDF guide, a young man named Jorek, leads the way. His lantern throws jittery cones of light. "This way, lords," he says, voice tight. "We use these tunnels to move water and promethium drum trains under the basilica. There is a junction ahead where 8 lines cross. If the enemy is heading for the crypts, they must pass there." Helion's auto-senses sweep each side passage. "Contact range," he mutters. "Close," Saren says simply. His halberd's haft glows faintly with ward light. "I can feel the warp here. It is loud with prayer and old ritual, but there is a hollow in it, coming closer, like dead air." Revan feels it too. The Force is still with him. He can sense heartbeats, the hum of engines above, the fear of the people praying upstairs. But at the edge of that sense is a dark ring that eats detail. He tests his connection. He lifts a hand subtly, uses the Force to ease a loose rock from the ceiling. It drops into his palm. The effort feels grainy, not impossible, but strained, as if fingers of ice have touched the edges of his mind. He lets the stone fall. "It is like a disease," he says, a numbness spreading inward. Varro glances at him. "Hold what strength you can until we see the enemy," he says. "Do not waste it on parlor tricks." Mara's vox crackles in her ear. She listens, then grimaces. "Update from topside," she says. "The Seraphs are pushing in the manufactorums, but our lines hold for now. Canoness Elira says the prayers in the basilica are steady. The tear is flickering. It grows, then shrinks, like something is testing it." Revan nods. The darkness behind his mind pulses to that rhythm. "Someone on the other side is playing with my cut," he says softly, probing the edges, seeing how much it can stretch without tearing more. Helion bares his teeth. "Then we cut them instead," he says. "Forward." The first clash comes in a side corridor. A dozen cultists round a corner with stolen shotguns and chain axes. Their eyes shine with madness. Warp script burns on their skin. They do not expect to meet Astartes at touching distance. Helion's bolter thunders once. A head disappears in a red puff. His brothers add 3 more shots. Half the cultists drop before they can act. The rest scream and rush. Saren steps forward, voice calm. "By the Titan of Terror and by the Grey Knights, I cast you out," he says. His halberd sweeps in a wide, clean arc. 2 torsos fall in halves. Revan barely needs to ignite his sabers. He draws one blue and lets a crazed man impale himself on it. Another swings an axe. Revan sidesteps and cracks his helmet against the wall with a Force-assisted shove. The Force feels thinner here, but it still flows. The fight is brief. No one on the Imperial side is even scratched. Mara kicks one body aside. "Probe," she says. "They're feeling us out." Varro crouches by a fallen cultist. He fingers a scrap of parchment nailed to the corpse's forehead. "Look," he says. "Scripture tuned to the pariah. Wards and chains. They are binding the blank with faith in the dark gods, making a weapon of hatred." Revan looks closer. The symbols on the parchment twist, almost alive. They speak of silence, of absence, of shame. He feels a tiny sting of recognition. He knows what it is to be cut off from his own past, his own power. Helion's gauntlet crushes the parchment. "They will not have time to use their toy to full effect," he says. "Not if we kill it first." Saren nods. "Onward," he says. They move deeper. The junction is a scar in the earth. 8 tunnels meet in a wide chamber supported by thick stone pillars. Rusted rails run through the middle where promethium trains once rolled. Old statues of saints stand in niches, their faces worn facet smooth from centuries of passing hands. Floodlights set up by the enemy glare from the far side. Their white beams cut through the dust and shadow. Between the lights and the Imperials, chaos waits. Word-bearer Marines stand in a rough half-circle. Crimson armor, black scripture crawling like ants. Their bolters are lowered for now. Behind them, mutant heavy gunners crouch behind sandbags and scrap. Autocannons and heavy stubbers point down the rails. At the back, atop a low mound of crates, stands Dark Apostle Malkor. Revan recognizes him from the square by his aura before his eyes see him. The same Crozius. The same book-shaped gap on his chest, where Revan folded his grimoire into a dull grey lump. New chains hang there now, bearing nailed-on faces, still screaming in the warp. Beside Malkor stands the blank. He is a man, or once was, thin and pale, in a harness of spiked iron. Cables run from the harness to chaos machines that hum and buzz. His eyes are dull and looking nowhere. His aura is nothing. Revan's senses slide off him like water on oil. Around the blank, there is a bubble of deadness. Revan feels it before they even step fully into the chamber. The force in his mind shrinks, like a muscle pulled tight. The hum of life of thought goes muffled. He staggers a half step. Saren puts out a hand, steadying him. Even through armor, his grip is firm. "Hold," the Grey Knight says. "You are feeling only the edge. It will get worse as we advance. Anchor yourself in your body, in your memories. Do not lean on the warp." Revan nods, teeth gritted. "Understood." Malkor raises his arms. "Welcome, Imperials," he calls. His voice booms off the stone. "And welcome, little outsider. I see you, foreign star. I taste the wrongness on your soul." His helmet turns toward Revan. "You bent our fire and folded our book," he says. "You are clever. I like clever toys." Hillian steps forward, chainsword grinding. "Your toys die today, heretic," he says. Malkor laughs. "Such confidence," he says. "From a slave to a corpse on a throne." Varro steps to Hillian's side. His voice is as cold as the chamber. "Your words will not move us, word-bearer," he says. "We have heard better lies from your masters." He lifts his bolt pistol. "Surrender the pariah. Lay down your arms. I offer you a clean death. Refuse, and we will scour you from this place with fire and blade." Malkor tilts his head. "You still think in small rounds and clean shots," he says. "We think in worlds." He rests a hand on the blank's harness. "This one had faith once," he says, "in your emperor. We took that faith and showed him the emptiness at the core of creation. Now he has no soul, no warp echo. He is a hole. And if I place that hole in the right place, your dear hive above will ring like a bell and crack." The blank does not react. Revan feels the bubble of silence grow. The force drains from his limbs. He can still move, but the ease, the flow, is gone. His sabers feel heavier at his belt. This is what he feared. Fighting without the song he has lived in for so long. Hellian's vox clicks. "Targets, Apostle and Pariah, are primary," he says calmly. "We break their connection. Grey Knights, take the right flank. I will hold center. Colonel, left flank suppression. Revan." He looks back briefly. "You take the gap. Cut your way to the blank. Kill it. After that, your powers may matter again. Until then, you are a knight with 2 swords. Fight like one." Revan nods. He draws both sabers. They flare blue and purple. Their light looks strange in the dead zone. Malkor taps the Crozius on the floor. "Begin," he says. Chaos guns roar. The chamber erupts. Autocannon rounds shriek down the rails. Lasfire flashes back. Bolter shells explode. Dust and chips of stone fill the air. Hellion and his brothers step forward, forming a moving wall. Bolter fire slams into their armor and ricochets. They answer with precise shots, cutting down heavy weapon teams. On the right, Saren and the other Grey Knights advance in measured strides, halberds glowing. Their armor wards hum like muted bells. Mara and her PDF hug the left wall, jumping from cover to cover, lasegun spitting. Revan runs the center gap. He does not dare raise a wide shield. The blank's presence would turn any warp construct to mush and possibly send the backlash straight into the Basilica's wards above. So he moves as he once did in tighter fights. He trusts his body, his training. He dodges a burst of stubber fire by inches. A shell grazes his shoulder, numbing his arm. He fights through it. He deflects a bolt around with his saber, but the effort is clumsy. Without full force guidance, the angle is wrong. The shell detonates too close, spinning him. He rolls, comes up, keeps going. This is what Saren said. Anchor in the body, in the now. A word bearer steps into his path, Chainsword roaring. Revan meets the blade with crossed sabers. Sparks fly. The traitor marine is stronger. Power armor servos whine. Revan's arms tremble. He slides 1 foot forward, twists his hips, and lets the marine's weight roll past. The chainsword swings wide. Revan steps inside and jabs his blue saber up into the armpit joint. The blade bites. Flesh and armor part. Hot blood sprays. The marine roars and tries to crush Revan in a bear hug. Revan brings his other saber up and drives it into the gorget seam. The giant shudders and falls. Revan pulls free, chest heaving. Each kill takes twice the effort it should. Not because his muscles are weak, but because the sense that usually whispers paths and flows in his mind is almost gone. He is fighting half blind. He keeps going. The blank's null bubble grows stronger with each step. At the far end, Malkor watches. His Crozius glows with baleful light. He starts to chant. Words sink into the air like hooks. Saren feels it. He is weaving a counterward. The Grey Knight calls over the Vox, using the blank as an anchor. If he finishes, he will turn this junction into a dead seed. Our faith, our powers, everything will be muffled. The demons beyond will have a clean thread to your tear, Revan. Varro fires at Malkor, but heavy word-bearers interpose themselves, armor shrugging off rounds. We cannot let him finish that litany, Varro snaps. Push. Revan grits his teeth and surges forward. He crosses an invisible line. The force drops to almost nothing. There is no sense of other minds, no hum of the basilica above, no taste of the tear. Only his body, the weight of armor, the thud of his heart, the ache in his arms. He stumbles, catching himself on one knee. The world feels smaller, flat. In that narrowness, an old fear whispers, "You are nothing without the Force. You are just a broken man in a mask." He pushes it aside by force of habit. There is no magic to help, only choice. He hears Malkor's voice, closer now. The Apostle's words slither. "And so we strip away the lie of souls," Malkor intones. "We show the meat what it is. We prove to the eye that this galaxy is ready to be remade." Revan looks up. The blank stands 10 meters away. Malkor stands just beyond him, outside the deepest null. The Apostle's eyes burn inside his helm. He sees Revan kneeling and laughs. "Feel it, little traveler," he calls. "The silence where your force should be. That is the truth. There is no grand balance, no living field, only the warp's howl and the deadness we carve into it." He takes a step forward, Crozius raised. Warp fire flickers around the weapon's head, then gutters as it touches the edge of the null. Malkor adjusts, keeping just outside. Revan forces himself to stand. "I have fought without power before," he says. His voice is rough. "My strength was never only in the Force." He steps toward the blank. Each step is an act of will. His legs feel like they are moving through thick mud. His sabers feel like iron rods. The blank does not look at him. The man's eyes are turned inward. Drool runs down his chin. Chains dig into his skin. For a moment, pity flares in Revan. Then Malkor swings. The Crozius crashes into Revan's side. He turns at the last instant, but without the Force's whisper, his timing is off. The weapon hits his ribs. There is a flash of burning pain. Armor buckles inward, bone cracks. The world whites out. Revan flies sideways and slams into a pillar. Stone chips rain down. One saber flies from his hand, clattering away. His ears ring. He tastes blood. The Crozius is more than metal. Even at the edge of the null, its built-in warp charge bites. It leaves a bruise in reality where it strikes. A smear of wrongness presses against his side, trying to sink in. He struggles to breathe. Each inhale is a stab. Far away, he hears Helion roar and crash into the front line. He hears Saren shout a litany and clash with another Marine. He hears Varro's bolt pistol bark. But around him, the bubble of silence hums. He is alone in it, with the blank and the apostle. Malkor strides closer, Crozius dripping faint warp static. "You are weaker than I hoped," he says. "I wanted to crack open your mind and see what your galaxy's gods taste like. But perhaps you will still serve." He taps the Crozius on the floor again. The sound reverberates, not in the air, but in Revan's chest. "I see your memories now," Malkor whispers. "A dead world, a gun that killed a planet. You pressed the trigger. You told yourself the numbers made it right." Images slam into Revan's mind, not from the warp, from his own head, shaken loose by pain and fear. Malakor Fui, ships breaking, ground folding, voices on the comm screaming as the super weapon fired. He had said, "This will end the war. This will save more lives." He had believed it. "You and I are not so different," Malkor croons. "We both know that mercy for the few can be cruelty for the many, that sometimes you must burn one world to save 10. Revan tries to push himself up. His left side screams. His saber hilt feels slippery in his bloody hand. Malkor's voice deepens, takes on an echo. "We can help you this time," the apostle says. "We can show you how to use your little tear like your gun. Invert it. Collapse Vandemar into the hole. Billions scream, the gate closes, and the scream you followed dies forever." The chamber around them fades. Revan sees the tear above Vandemar from the inside. He sees the path his Rakatan gate cut between galaxies, glowing like a thread. He sees how, with one hard twist, he could pull that thread tight and slice the world beneath it right off the map. The logic is brutally clear. Kill Vandemar. Close the wound. Save 1,000 other worlds from the scream. Numbers. Cold. Clean. "You want to save lives," Malkor whispers. His Crozius hovers over Revan's chest. "This is how. We can even help you, traveler. You think the gods only destroy. They also build. They will give you strength to pull that thread. Just kneel. Just admit that your code is a lie." Revan's hands tremble. His motto is simple. "I do not waste lives." If he refuses this path, if Vandemar falls and the tear spreads, he may be wasting even more. Billions now, trillions later. Math claws at him. His broken ribs burn. His power is gone. His allies are fighting and dying in the distance. A simple choice once again. Burn one world to save many. He knows this trap. He fell into it once. It has haunted him ever since. He closes his eyes. In the silence of the null, there is only his breath, his pain, and a small, stubborn memory. Not of Malika, of a small village on a backwater world, where he once chose not to fire from orbit, where he went down, blade in hand, and fought house to house instead. It was harder. It cost more of his time, more of his blood. But the village lived. Those people never knew they had almost been numbers on a chart. They always tell you there is no other way, he whispers, that the biggest sacrifice is the smartest. Malkor leans closer. It is, he says. Say the word. I will show you how. Revan opens his eyes. He looks at the blank, at the dull, empty face, at the chains that turned a faithful man into a hole. He looks at his own bloody hands. No, he says quietly. And he means it. He will not fire another Malachor, not even by clever warp math, not even to save 100 worlds that only exist in his fear. He will not become the kind of protector who kills everything to keep his ledger clean. Malkor's eyes flare. Fool, the apostle snarls. He swings the Crozius down. Revan moves. He cannot call on the Force, but he still has training. He twists his body sideways. The Crozius head slams into the stone where his skull was a heartbeat before. The floor cracks, shards fly. He lets the pain in his side become a signal, not a cage. Moves with it. He slides under the swing and pushes off the broken floor, ramming his shoulder into the blank. The man is lighter than a Marine. They crash together. For the first time, the blank's eyes flicker. Something like surprise crosses his dead features. Chains strain. The cables to the Chaos Machines jerk. Revan wraps one arm around the blank's torso and uses his momentum to carry them both over the edge of the Prometheum rail trench. They fall. The drop is short, but the impact slams the breath from both of them. They hit the dry trench bottom in a tangle. The null field washes over Revan in full now. The Yof last thin threads of the Force snap. Absolute silence floods his mind. He feels naked. Malkor roars above and lunges to the edge, Crozius lifted. But he does not jump down. Down there, he would lose his own gifts too. Kill him, the apostle screams to his Marines. Kill them both. I can find another blank. But in the trench, it is just Revan and the pariah. Up close, the man's skin smells of old sweat and metal. His eyes are dull grey. There is a scar where a rosary once hung. Revan's hand finds a small blade at his belt, a simple vibro knife. It trembles over the pariah's throat. One stab would end the null. His power would rush back in. The fight would tip. He hesitates. This is not a demon, not a monster. This is a broken weapon, a victim. Please, Revan whispers, if there is anything left of you, let go. Do not make me do this. The blank's eyes focus for the first time. For a heartbeat, Revan sees a man in them, a flicker of memory, a child lifted up in a shrine, a prayer whispered over a sick wife. A tear rolls down the blank's cheek. His mouth moves. Pero, he breathes. Then chains pull tight. Chaos brands burn on his skin. The hole in the warp around him pulses. He screams. The scream has no echo in the warp. It is purely human, raw, but it is enough. Revan acts. He drives the knife into the man's heart. The pariah jerks once, then goes limp. The null field collapses like a bursting bubble. Warp noise rushes back in. The Force slams into Revan's mind with a painful rush of sensation. He gasps. It feels like drowning in reverse. He clutches the dead man to his chest for a moment, head bowed. I am sorry, whispers. This death I did weigh. This one I will carry. Above, Malkor howls as the silence disappears. The warp floods back into the chamber. Saren feels the pressure change at once. "The blank is down," he shouts. "Now!" He and his fellow Grey Knight chant a sacred litany, words sharp and bright. "By Titan and Terror, by blade and by blood, by the Emperor's will, we drive you back." Their halberds flare with true silver fire as they wade into the word-bearers. Hillion roars and barrels forward, Chainsword shrieking. Freed from the dead weight of the Null, his squad's supporting Psyker fields hum to life. Small, controlled blessings harden their armor, sharpen their sight. Varro draws a small, ornate tube from his coat and flicks it open. Inside, a micro-reliquary glows with soft golden light, a finger bone of some long-dead saint. He presses it to his forehead and whispers a tight prayer. "Emperor, see your servant," he murmurs. "Judge my aim." He raises his bolt pistol again. Revan drags himself out of the trench. The force sings back into his limbs. The pain does not vanish, but it fades to a distant throb. He can feel the basilica above, the tear above that, the clash of minds and wills in the chamber. He also feels something else. When he killed the pariah, a tiny spark of light flickered in the warp. Not from him, from the dead man's last word, Emperor. It streaked upward toward a vast, dim presence on Terra, like a dying star's last flare. Revan tucks that sensation away. No time to interpret it now. He scoops up his lost saber. Both blades ignite with a familiar hiss. Malkor has not stopped chanting. Freed of the Null, his Crozius blazes with crimson warp fire. Symbols lash the air around him. He is trying to salvage his ritual, to twist the rush of returning warp energy into a new pattern. Revan can taste it now. If Malkor finishes, the tear above will link to this junction in a different way. It will not just be a gate. It will be an eye that can look straight at the Basilica's heart. Revan limps toward him. "My turn," he says. The duel is nothing like their first clash in the plaza. There, Revan had room to move and a shield of faithlight to lean on. Here the air is thick with warp residue, blood and prayer. The apostle stands at the center of a crude altar made of crates and pipes. Crozius, a burning star. Revan comes in hard. Blue and purple blades whirl. Malkor meets him, laughing. The Crozius strikes in brutal downward blows. Each hit that lands on Revan's sabers sends a shock up his arms. Each miss cracks the floor. They trade strikes. Revan cuts at Malkor's wrists. The apostle parries and counters with a blow toward Raven's wounded ribs. Revan twists away. Pain flares. They circle. Words spill from Malkor between grunts. "Even now, you refuse the only clean answer," he spits. "You killed one man down there and think yourself noble. But you will let billions burn because you cannot bear to pull the big lever again. That is not mercy. That is cowardice, dressed as kindness." Revan's reply is short, between breaths. "I will not let you do the counting." Malkor roars and presses harder. He draws on the warp. Dark sigils flare around his Crozius. Each swing drags a smear of unreality through the air. Revan feels his connection strain as those smears try to catch his mind and hitch a ride. He cannot match that strength directly, so he changes tactics. He shifts his stance, lowers his sabers, lets Malkor think he is weakening. The apostle lunges. At the last instant, Revan steps into the swing instead of back from it. He angles his sabers so the Crozius slides across them and continues past. Overextended. Using the force in a narrow, focused burst, he yanks one of the cables on the floor. A heavy Promethean pipe lifts just enough. Malkor's back foot catches it. He stumbles. Revan drives his blue saber up into the Apostle's left vambrace joint. The blade bites. Armor melts. Flesh sears. Malkor bellows. He yanks his arm back, leaving a smoking gouge. Blood and warp fire hiss out. He retaliates with a backhand swing at Revan's head. Revan cannot fully dodge. The Crozius grazes his mask and shoulder. The world explodes with light and pain. The blow shatters part of the mask's upper left side. Metal cracks. The impact slams into his skull. His vision blurs. For a moment, he sees double. Once through his own eyes, once through a haze of warp fire. He hits the floor hard. Something in his mind tears, not all the way, but enough. Memories that were neatly sealed by the Jedi Council's work now rub against each other. Sith days, Jedi days, the empty days in between. For a heartbeat, he does not know who he is. Malkor looms over him. "You are nothing," the Apostle hisses. "A shell built by cowards, walking on the ashes of your own sins. Kneel. Let me write real purpose into you. With your gate and our gods, we can remake more than Vandemar. We can carve a road to your galaxy." Warp fire gathers in the Crozius, ready to drop. Revan lies there, half his mask broken off, one eye exposed. He stares at the weapons above him, at the Apostle, at the flickering tear in the air behind Malkor, where the ritual has almost taken shape and is now collapsing into a raw, angry knot because of the Knoll's death and the battle's chaos. His injured ribs ache. His mind swirls. Then something else pierces the noise. A light, not from the warp, from above. It shines down through layers of stone and metal, through the basilica, through the tear, through Revan himself. For a heartbeat, he sees something vast. A man on a throne of machinery, his flesh rotted, his mind aflame. Beams of psychic light stream from him across the galaxy. Souls cling to that light like ships to a beacon. The Emperor of mankind does not speak with a voice. He has none left. But his will presses down like a hand. It does not tell Revan what to do. It shows him what is at stake. Worlds burning under chaos fleets. Children praying in broken shrines. Astra Militarum regiments dying by the million to hold lines they do not understand. A galaxy hanging by threads of duty and faith. It also shows him something else, his own thread, thin, wrong-colored, reaching from another galaxy tied into this one by his gate. It could cut, it could heal, it could poison. It depends where and how it is knotted. The vision snaps. Revan is back on the floor, in the junction, under a Crozius. Malkor has not seen what he saw, but he felt something. The Apostle flinches, head turning up as if a distant shout stung his soul. "What was that?" he snarls. "What was that?" Revan moves. He rolls sideways as the Crozius comes down. The weapon crashes into the floor where his chest was, sending a crack through the stone. Revan pushes with the force, not at the Apostle, but at the ritual knot behind him. The half-formed link between the tear and the junction is weak. It has been built on a dead null, broken mid-spell, mixed with imperial prayers and blood. He does not try to collapse it like Malika. He does not try to turn it into a neat gate. He simply twists it a little. He makes it reflect instead of pierce. A mirror, not a spear. The warp shrieks. The knot shudders and flares. For a moment, a ghost image of the Emperor's throne appears in the knot, then vanishes. The link snaps upward instead of downward, anchoring not to the junction, but to some far high point. Malkor reels as the spell backlashes. Warp energy kicks up the Crozius and slams it back into his own chest. Script on his armor burns. He staggers, smoking. Revan lunges up, driving his purple saber into the wound he already made in Malkor's arm and through into the chest behind it. The blade bursts out between the Apostle's shoulder blades. Malkor stiffens. He looks down at Revan, eyes wide behind his helm lenses. For that, you will not be forgiven, he rasps. Revan twists the saber. Warp fire gushes from the wound, screaming. The letters on Malkor's armor dissolve. The crozius falls from his hand. The Apostle drops to his knees, then topples. The ritual dies with him, the half-formed gate collapsing into a ring of fading light. But the knot Revan twisted does not vanish. It floats above the floor for a few seconds, a thin, bright line pointing up and away. Then it sinks out of sight, not into the stone, but into the warp. Somewhere, far across space, something ancient and golden turns its attention for a heartbeat toward Vandemar. Then the moment passes. Codex note: in killing Dark Apostle Malkor, Revan redirects a near-complete warp conduit, causing it to bounce toward Terra's existing psychic beacon instead of anchoring at Vandemar. This saves the Hive but leaves a trace thread connecting the alien Psyker's signature to the Emperor's light, a potential strategic asset or liability recognized by high-level astropathic choirs. The junction falls still. The remaining word-bearers fight on for a few more seconds, then break when they see their apostle die and their ritual fail. Some are cut down by bolter fire and silver blades. A few retreat into side tunnels, leaving blood and scripture behind. Saren stands over a fallen traitor, halberd dripping ichor. Purge complete at primary objective, he reports, voice steady. Enemy null neutralized. Apostle dead. Residual chaos presence minimal. Ilian leans against a pillar, armor dented and scorched. My brothers took wounds, but all live, he says. We held. Mara looks around at the dead PDF and cultists mixed on the floor. Her face is tight. We paid a price, she says. Varro steps down from a low ledge, reliquary still glowing faintly in his hand. He walks to where Revan kneels beside the pariah's body. Half Revan's mask is gone. A deep bruise is forming along his jaw. Blood runs from under his armor where his ribs cracked. He looks tired, older. He has not moved away from the dead man. Varro stops a few steps away. You killed him, the Inquisitor says. The blank. Yes, Revan answers. You could have done it sooner, Varro continues. Before the Apostle knocked your teeth out. Before your ribs broke. Before more of our people died in the crossfire. Revan's hand tightens on the vibro knife, still in the pariah's chest. I needed to be sure, he says. He was not a demon. He was a slave. I had to know there was no other way. Varro's mouth is a thin line. And did you? He asks. Revan looks at the dead man's face. I heard him say your emperor's name, he says quietly. Once. At the end. That was enough. I made the cut. Varro studies him. I will not pretend I understand your mercy, the Inquisitor says. But you did not take the quick road when the Apostle offered you a way to burn Vandemar. I felt the shift in the warp when you twisted that ritual instead of letting it fire. He glances up at the ceiling, at the tear they cannot see from here. You defied chaos and chose a path that saved this hive today, he says. That matters. He tucks the reliquary away. It also changes things, he adds. Helion limps closer. How so? The captain asks. Varro looks between the two warriors. When Malkao's spell bounced, it touched something, he says. My astropath just screamed a message into my vox bead. A choir on Terra felt a foreign signature tug on the Astronomicon for a heartbeat. They traced it back here, to Vandemar, to you, Revan. Revan lifts his head. They noticed, he says. Yes. Varro's eyes are unreadable. You are no longer just my problem, or Mara's, or Hellion's. The supreme authority of mankind's faith and war knows you exist, and the conclave of the Inquisition knows you reshaped a word-bearer rite and tied it, however briefly, into the Emperor's light. Mara frowns. What does that mean? She asks. Varro sighs. It means we no longer have the option of quietly deciding whether to kill him here, he says, nodding at Raven. Orders have come, High Ones. He looks at Revan. You will live, for now, he says, and you will travel, under guard. Revan pushes himself to his feet, wincing. Where? He asks, though he already suspects. Hellion answers. To Terra, he says softly. To Holy Terra itself. To stand, in whatever way one can stand, before the Emperor's will. Saren inclines his helm. It is rare for any, even among the Grey Knights, to feel the master of mankind's touch so directly, he says. The fact that you did, and lived, marks you. Varro nods. Command believes that if anyone can decide what to do with a being like you, he says, it is not some sector lord or minor inquisitor. It is the heart of our species. He looks around the bloody junction. But first, he adds, we must make sure Vandemar does not fall while we prepare to leave it. Chaos is not beaten yet. The tear is weaker, but still there. The Crimson Seraphs will not forget this insult. Mara shoulders her shotgun. Her voice is hoarse but firm. Then we get topside, she says. We hold the lines. We buy you the time you need to move this mess-up chain. She looks at Revan and holds his gaze despite the broken mask. For what it's worth, she says, I'm glad you didn't pick the easy math. Revan gives a small, tired nod. So am I, he says. Now. He glances at the pariah's body one last time. Before, I just told myself I was right, he adds quietly. This time, I will remember that I chose to be wrong in the eyes of the numbers. Hellion claps a heavy gauntlet on his uninjured shoulder. Sometimes the Emperor asks us to hold when withdrawal would save more at the cost of our honor, he says. Sometimes he asks us to die on walls that mean little on a map, but much to the hearts of the people behind them. You are learning that lesson the hard way. Revan almost smiles. Story of my life, he says. Varro turns toward the tunnel back up. Then let us go write the next chapter, he says. The world above still burns. The supreme authority waits. And Chaos has seen that our new ally can twist their work. They will not let that stand unattended. The group moves out. Behind them, the junction is silent again. On the wall, by the pariah's body, someone has scratched a tiny aquila into the stone. It is new. The dust is still fresh. No one saw who drew it, but its wings point upward toward a throne on Terra, and outward toward a foreign star that now glows faintly in the Emperor's endless burning night. Up to now, Revan has helped hold Vandemar's Grand Basilica, killed a Dark Apostle and a pariah, and twisted a Chaos ritual so the Emperor himself noticed his presence. Now he leaves a burning world in the hands of its own defenders and is carried toward the heart of the Imperium to be judged. The Severitas cuts into the warp like a black knife. Void shields flicker as real space peels away. Outside the hull, the Immaterium boils in colors no human eye should see. Inside, the decks shake once, then settle. Revan feels the jump as a hard tug in his bones. On Vandemar, the tier still hangs above the hive, but smaller. Sons of Dawn and PDF hold the streets. Canoness. Elira leads packed crowds in constant prayer. Their voices echo faintly in the warp behind him. He stands at a narrow viewing slit, watching the unreal storm. Beside him, Brother Justikar Saren of the Grey Knights watches too, helm off. His shaved head is marked with small scars and tattooed wards. You have ridden stranger seas than this, Saren says quietly. Yet you look as if it makes you uneasy. Revan's broken mask sits repaired but scarred on his face. One eye looks out through metal, the other through the cracked gap. It is not the warp, he says. It is the thread I left in it. I can feel it pulling. To that throne you serve. Saren nods once. The master of mankind does not often notice individuals, he says. But when he does, things change. The Medici bay smells of antiseptic and oil. Revan lies on a metal couch while a Medici servitor works. Thin mechadendrites snake out from its chest, humming. One lifts a rib back into place with a precise tug. Another sprays sealant. Helion stands nearby, helmet under one arm. Even out of battle, the captain looks like a statue carved to fight. You heal fast, Helion notes, for a man without gene seed. Revan exhales slowly. I have had worse. The servitor clicks and withdraws. Bone structure reinforced, it drones. Muscle tears bound. Patient advised to avoid further blunt force trauma to left side. Revan pushes himself up. The pain is dull now. He rolls his shoulder once. Thank you, he says. The servitor does not answer. It trundles away to tend a wounded crewman with shrapnel in his leg. Helion leans against a bulkhead. On Vandemar, he says, you chose to kill one man with a knife instead of one world with a ritual. In doing so, you tied yourself to the Emperor's gaze. He tilts his head. Do you regret it? Revan thinks. No, he says, but it scares me. Helion's lips twitch. Good, he says. You should be afraid of any bond you cannot fully see. We Astartes were made by the Emperor. We still fear the weight of his will. You are something he did not make. He looks at Revan. You will not fit cleanly into our codes. Revan almost smiles. I have never fit cleanly into any code. Helion's gaze is steady. Learn this then, he says. Duty is not only numbers, it is also example. When Vandemar's people hear the story, they will not know the math behind your choice. They will know that someone refused to throw them away. That is worth a great deal in this age. The chapel on deck 7 is small. An iron aquila hangs over a simple altar. Candles flicker. A hollow of the Emperor's face glows behind a haze of incense. Varro kneels alone at the front. His rosette lies on the step before him. His head is bowed. His lips move in silent prayer. Revan steps inside and stays near the door. He does not want to disturb. Yet Varro's voice comes, low and flat. Come in, alien, the Inquisitor says. You have already disturbed my life enough. A chapel is a small thing beside a whole world. Revan walks up the aisle, boots quiet on the metal floor. You regret letting Vandemar live, he says. Varro stays kneeling. I regret nothing, he says at once. Then he sighs. I am unsettled. My duty told me to prepare Exterminatus. The numbers were clear. I chose not to press the sequence, in part because of you, in part because the Emperor's light flared when your name was spoken in the choir. I do not like feeling swayed. Revan studies the hollow of the Emperor. You fear becoming soft, he says. I fear becoming partial, Varro answers. An Inquisitor who weighs worlds by personal feeling, not by the Imperium's needs, soon damns more souls than he saves. Revan kneels beside him, a little awkwardly. In my old life, he says, I let cold logic rule. I became a Sith Lord who broke worlds in the name of peace. Then I lost my memories and tried to live by strict light. I nearly let others die because I waited too long, afraid to act. Both extremes failed. Varro glances at him. "And now?" he asks. "Now I decide case by case," Revan says. "I keep one simple rule, even when the math screams at me. Do not waste lives. But sometimes waste means spend when you do not have to. Sometimes it means refuse to spend when you must." I try to see the difference. Varro's eyes return to the hollow. "What if you are wrong?" he asks. "I am wrong often," Revan replies. "The point is not to be perfect. The point is to notice when you are hardening into a pattern that kills more than it saves. Your exterminatus pattern is strong, Varro. You must watch it." Varro snorts softly. "You are telling a Malleus Inquisitor to be gentle," he says. "The ecclesiarchy would call that heresy." "I am telling you to be awake," Revan says. "Your Emperor showed me his war. It is too big to win by one rule alone." Varro is silent a long moment. Then he picks up his rosette and stands. "We will see what he tells you on his throne," he says. "If he decides you are a useful madness, perhaps there is room for one more strange voice in this age." The warp outside the ship turns rough. On the bridge, alarms chime at a low, steady beat. A red rune blinks on the main display. The Geller field's glow shifts from soft gold to harsh white. "Warp pressure spike," calls the navigator's aide. A localized disturbance vectoring directly toward the Severitas. It is riding our own wake. Varro strides to the display. "Status?" he snaps. The navigator, a hooded figure with sealed eyes, trembles. "Something is fixed on the thread you left in the warp, Lord," she whispers. "The one tied to Terra. A current is flowing back along it. Something curious." Saren's hand tightens on his halberd haft. "We knew Chaos would not ignore that tug," he says. "Ready all wards. Grey Knights to the Geller chamber." Revan steps closer to the display. He feels it too. A presence moving through the warp toward the ship. Not a blind beast. Not raw demon rage. Something shaped and sharp. It hums with a pattern that makes his skin crawl. "We are being followed," he says, "by a thought I once had." Varro looks at him. "Explain." Revan does not take his eyes from the swirling view. "When I fired the weapon at Malachor Fev," he says, "a part of me liked the clarity. One act, one blast, one end to a messy war. I killed that part over years, buried it. The warp here does not let such things stay buried." Hellion growls. "You are saying your own ghost is coming for you?" Revan nods once. "Yes, or something wearing it." The Geller chamber is a cathedral built around a machine. Pillars of brass and steel rise up around a core of glowing, humming coils. The field that keeps the warp out thrums like a heart. Grey Knights stand in a circle around the core, helms on, halberds planted. Saren chants award litanies. Each word reinforces the field. Revan, Varro, and Hellion stand just outside the circle. The air tastes hot and sharp. Sparks race along old sigils. A low, mocking laugh echoes inside the chamber. It does not come from any throat. The air in front of the Geller core ripples. Warp light leaks through like oil through cloth. It gathers into a shape. A figure steps out of the distortion. He wears dark armor and a mask split between white and black. A long cloak trails behind him. A single red lightsaber burns in his hand. He looks like Revan from some point in his own past, before the Jedi Council's work, before the guilt had time to sink in. "Hello," the Shade says. His voice is Revan's, but smoother. "You came so far to escape me. New galaxy, new codes, and yet here I am." Saren raises his halberd. "Demon," he says, "you wear an alien's memory. You will die." The mirror Revan tilts his head. "Demon," he repeats. A simple word for a complex truth. "I'm not a servant of your warp godlings, Silver Knight. I am a groove in this man's soul, deep enough that your storm could pour into it and make a man-shaped tide. He points the red blade at Revan. You are tired of pain, he says. You are tired of small, messy wars. I offer you what you once had, the clean stroke, the large answer. You saw, with Malkor, how easy it would be to pull one thread and cut Vandemar away. I can help you find more threads. Revan's hand goes to his own hilts. The chamber feels tighter. The Geller field shivers. Varro's voice is low. We cannot let this thing unbalance the field, he says. If it cracks, the whole ship drowns. Hillian steps forward. Stay inside the circle's shadow, he says to Revan. Let us strike the first blow. Revan shakes his head. This is my knot, he says. I must cut it. He steps forward, sabers igniting. Blue and purple light flare. The mirror Revan smiles behind his mask. Show me, he says. Show me you are stronger than yourself. The clash is swift. Blue and purple meet red. The mirror's movements are Revan's own, but sharper. Each strike is aimed not only at his body, but at his past. The red blade slides into openings that Revan remembers using on others. Why refuse the big answers? The shade taunts between blows. You could end so much suffering, burn a few worlds, and the rest sleep easy. Revan grunts as a cut grazes his arm. Because I have seen what is left after you are done burning, he says. The mirror laughs. Ash and silence, he says. Peace. Revan pushes him back with a forced shove. The shade slides a step, then stops, boots, scraping. The Geller coil flares as their powers push against each other. The field hum protests. Saren and the other Grey Knights raise their halberds together. They chant a single, simple line. In the Emperor's name, be still. Silver light coils around the circle. The mirror Revan's red blade sputters at the edges. He snarls. You hide behind a corpse's light, he says to Revan. You tie yourself to a throne that kills 1,000 souls a day. You call me cruel. Revan's blades lock with his. Cruel, yes, Revan says, but honest. I know what the throne costs. I saw it. The Emperor showed me. He asked me to help carry that cost, not to pretend no one pays it. The shade's eyes narrow behind the mask. What did he show you? He demands. Revan pushes, voice steady now. He showed me that victory is not saving everyone, he says. It is saving enough that hope is still possible. You kill hope. You cut so clean you leave nothing for anyone to build on. The mirror Revan laughs again, but there is a crack in it now. You think you can manage the middle path, he sneers. You think you can dance on the line between waste and sacrifice forever. You will fail. You will choose the big fire again. And when you do, you will wish you had listened to me. He raises his free hand, pulling warp power to him in a bright, dangerous knot. Before he can throw it, the chamber fills with golden light. It does not come from the Geller core. It pours through the warp distortion behind the shade, like a sun behind a dirty window. Every Grey Knight drops to one knee. Varro stiffens, eyes wide. Hellion bows his head. Revan feels the same vast will touch the knot he shares with Terra. It pulls, just enough. A simple idea fills the chamber. Not here, not now. Reach the throne. The golden light hits the mirror Revan like a hammer. He screams without sound. His form cracks. Red light shatters. The warp knot inside him unravels and burns away. In a heartbeat, he is gone. Only a faint scorch mark remains on the deck. The Geller field steadies. The coils hum in a smoother tone. Silence falls. Saren rises slowly. The Master of Mankind just intervened directly, he says in awe, on a single ship, for a single alien soul. Varro exhales. Then our course is clear, he says. We do not stop. We do not divert. We take him to Terra. Revan stands still, sabers dimming. He feels shaken, but lighter. The part of him that loved the big fire is dead again. Not gone forever, nothing that deep ever is, but burned low. He bows his head. I hear you, he whispers to the invisible hand. I am coming. Terror fills the view screens like a wounded sun. Its oceans are grey-green. Its continents are covered in hive sprawl and defense grids. Orbital plates and shipyards ring it in a metal halo. As the Severitas drops from the warp, Vox channels fill with challenge codes and hymn bursts. Massive warships drift. Nearby, guns silent but very awake, Revan stands on the bridge beside Varro and Hellion. He feels the Astronomicon up close now. The Emperor's constant psychic beacon burns from the planet's heart. It is a steady pain and comfort at once. Holy terror, Hellion says quietly. Even he lowers his eyes for a moment. Where the Emperor sits, where the heresy was broken, where the palace stands. Revan watches. The ship glides toward a single enormous continent. There, the Imperial Palace rises. It is not one building. It is a continent-sized mass of walls, towers, domes, and guns. Mountains have been carved into curtain walls. Void shields shimmer over vast courtyards. Golden statues of the Emperor and his sons loom over landing fields. Cathedral spires stab the sky. The Eternity Gate, a single door taller than entire hive spires, glows with wards and defense fields. Revan's breath catches. He has seen capital worlds. Coruscant, with its endless city. But this is not just a capital. It is a fortress built around a god. Big enough for you? Varro asks dryly. Revan nods once. Yes, he says simply. They descend in a smaller craft. The shuttle's interior is cramped but rich. Banners hang on the walls, bearing the sigil of the Inquisition and the double-headed eagle. Revan sits in a restraint harness. His hands are free, but two grey knights sit across from him, and an inquisitorial stormtrooper squad fills the rest of the space. Varro stands by the rear hatch, steady, without holding anything. As they break through the last cloud layer, golden light fills the cabin. The shuttle sets down on a landing plate of black and gold adamantium. The hatch drops. Heat from the palace's shielded atmosphere washes in. It smells of incense, machine oil, and the breath of billions of pilgrims. Revan steps out. He sees lines of Adeptus Custodes first. They stand at attention in armor of gleaming auramite, each taller than a space marine, each carrying a guardian spear. Red plumes trail from their helms. Their faces are uncovered, calm and unreadable. Beside them stand robed figures with shaven heads and blank stares, sisters of silence. Their null auras press like gentle hands against Revan's senses. He sways for a moment as the force dips, then finds a new balance. The Emperor's beacon still hums behind the blanks, steady and vast. A custodian steps forward. I am Shield Captain Alcon, he says. His voice is deep and controlled. By the will of the Captain General and the High Lords, you, Revan of another galaxy, are summoned to stand before the Golden Throne. His eyes flick to Varro. The Inquisition has argued for your destruction, he says. Others for your study. The Emperor's own light stayed both hands, so you will walk under many eyes. Revan inclines his head. I understand, he says. He walks. The journey into the palace is an act of worship. They pass under arches carved with 1,000,000 names. Each name belonged to someone who died building these walls. Choirs sing in side chapels. Servo skulls float, carrying incense censers and data slates. Scribes write endlessly at long stone tables, copying orders and histories. Pilgrims kneel as Revan passes, but not for him. They pray to the Emperor, who is somewhere ahead, behind countless doors. Blanks walk near Revan's path at intervals. Their fields push and pull at his senses. He learns to ride the waves, to feel the Emperor's beacon as an anchor when everything else dims. Hellion walks with him as far as a certain gate. "This is as far as I go," the captain says. "Even a space marine cannot step near the throne without strict cause. What happens beyond this point is between you, the Inquisition, and the master of mankind." Revan nods. "Thank you," he says, "for trusting me when it did not fit your training." Hellion's scarred face softens for a moment. "Do not disappoint my faith," he says, "or you will find the Sons of Dawn in your path one day." He steps back. Varro and the Grey Knights continue on with Revan. Finally, they reach a heavy door of black metal worked with gold. Beyond it, the air hums differently. Varro stops. "This is your audience," he says. "We do not walk past this point, not even I. Only the custodes and those they permit." Alcon, the shield captain, nods. "He goes alone," he says. Revan feels a sudden sharp fear, not of death, of what he will be asked to carry. He steps through the door. It closes behind him with a soft, final sound. The throne room is vast and dim. Pillars rise into darkness. Cherub servitors drift through the air, trailing cables and incense. Huge machines hum and clank, pumping psychic and material fuel. In the center, on a raised dais, sits the golden throne. It is a mountain of gold and machinery. Cables run into it from all sides. Tubes carry fluids in and out. Wards burn on every surface. On the throne sits the Emperor. His body is broken, skin dry and tight, eyes hollow, chest barely rising. He looks like a corpse held up by metal, but his mind is not dead. Revan feels it at once. It is like standing in front of a star. The Astronomican's light focuses here, in this ruined man. Every human soul that prays to him sends a thread of thought. Every astropath who looks for his beacon touches this center. That mind turns toward Revan. There is no voice. There is a pressure, images, concepts. Revan staggers, then drops to one knee, bowing his head. His own thread, thin, wrong, from another galaxy, glows bright for a heartbeat. The Emperor looks at it. Revan feels three things at once. First, the sheer scale of the war. Orcs, Tyranids, Necrons, Chaos Gods, human corruption. An entire species fighting not to win, but not to die. Second, the weight of the throne's cost. 1,000 psychers a day consumed. The Emperor's own endless pain, stretched across 10,000 years. Third, himself, as the Emperor sees him. A Vyar cut in reality, a walking gate, a man who has burned and repented, who now clings to a small code of mercy in a cruel universe, a foreign tool, a chance. Questions form in Revan's mind, pushed by that vast will. Why did you refuse the clean sacrifice on Vandemar? Revan answers without words. He sends the memory of Malachor, the emptiness after the blast, the way numbers can become an excuse to feel nothing. He sends the pariah's last word, the little Aquila scratched on the wall. He sends his fear of becoming a comfortable killer in the name of the greater good. The throne's presence presses tighter. Why did you kill the pariah? Revan sends his answer. Because there was no other way to stop the null before the ritual linked to the basilica. Because the man himself wanted release. Because mercy for him, in that moment, meant death. The throne weighs both answers. Revan feels no anger, no praise, only assessment. Then something like approval, very faint. The Emperor does not ask him to be perfectly merciful. He does not ask him to be perfectly ruthless. He shows him a simple picture, a line. On one end, unchecked mercy that refuses every hard choice until all worlds fall. On the other, cold calculus that throws worlds away without blinking. The point where he wants Revan to walk is not exactly in the middle. It leans toward sacrifice, toward survival. But it is not at the end. A second image appears. The tear, the Rakatan cut between galaxies, the way chaos eyes it, the way it could grow. The Emperor's will shapes a new pattern around it. He does not close the tear fully. He cannot. It was made from outside his rules. Instead, he wraps his light around it, using the thread Revan twisted toward terror. He binds it like a wound bandaged but not yet healed. Revan feels heat lance through his chest. The bond between his force and this warp changes. It is no longer just a foreign bridge. It is linked to the Astronomicon now. Part of its current runs through him. The Emperor shows him the cost. Each time Revan uses that bond at full power, he will pull on the throne's light. It will hurt him. It will hurt the already strained beacon. Use it too often, and either he will burn out, or the tear will strain and widen. He must choose his moments. Another concept presses into his mind. You will not open new cuts. You will stitch. You will be a needle, not a knife. Revan understands. He bows his head lower. I accept, he whispers. He does not know if sound matters here. The thought does. The pressure of the Emperor's mind eases a little. Not gone, never gone, but less crushing. A final image forms. 3 paths, not in detail, just shapes. Return, wander, serve. Those will be laid out in words later by human mouths. For now, the Emperor simply shows him that a choice will come. That this audience is not the end of his judgment, only the start. The throne's light withdraws slightly. The audience is over. Revan stays kneeling a moment longer, chest heaving. His ribs ache. His head feels cracked open and reset. Then he stands. He turns back toward the door. The war for Vandemar continues far away. The war for the Imperium stretches in every direction. But now, he carries a new bond and a clearer sense of what victory can mean in a world where no one truly wins. He steps back toward the humans who will put words to the Emperor's silent will. On a high balcony of the palace, an old astropath writes a report in slow, careful script. Subject Revan's link to the Immaterium has been partially yoked to the Astronomicon, she notes. His force no longer floats entirely outside our warp. It now draws in crisis on a tiny fraction of the Emperor's beacon. She dips her quill again. Operational limits. Every major use of this bond strains both his mind and the tear scar over Vandemar. Excessive draws risk burning out his soul or widening the cut between galaxies, she continues. He is forbidden, by throne mandate carried through custodies and inquisition, from creating new breaches. He is licensed only to stitch existing wounds and to wield his alien power where Imperial tools cannot reach, under watchful eyes. She signs it with a curl. In sum, Revan is now a sanctioned anomaly, half foreign, half bound, whose greatest strength and greatest danger are the same thread. Use with care. Up to now, Revan has closed a basilica's wound, killed a dark apostle, ended a pariah's pain, fought his own darker echo in the warp, and knelt before the golden throne. Now the Imperium must decide what to do with a man who can cut between galaxies. They bring him to a smaller hall near the throne. Smaller on Terra still means huge. A vaulted chamber of black stone and gold. Tall windows of armored crystal show a sliver of the palace outer walls. A long table of dark metal stands in the center, carved with the aquila. Custodies guard the walls. Sisters of silence stand at each corner, their null auras like soft pressure. Varro, Saren, and a few senior officers wait near the back. At the table sit 3 figures. An old woman in layered robes, a golden badge of office at her throat, a High Lord of Terror, a robed tech priest, half his face brass and lenses, a tall man in inquisitorial black, older and more lined than Varro. Revan stops a few paces from the table. The High Lord studies him with sharp, tired eyes. "The Emperor has turned his light towards you twice," she says. Her voice is dry as paper. "Once on Vandemar, once on the Severitas. That is more attention than most of us at this table will ever earn." She folds her hands. "He did not give us a clear order. He rarely does. He gave us a pattern, 3 shapes, 3 paths. We will speak them aloud now." She raises one thin finger. "The first path is return," she says. "We have learned enough from your Rakatan scars and from what the Emperor showed our choirs. With years of work and risk, we could perhaps rebuild an echo of your gate using the tear you made and the thread you tied to terror." The tech priest nods, mechadendrites twitching. "Probability of success, non-zero," he says in a buzzing voice. "Probability of local reality damage, high. Timeline disruption, unknown. Memory corruption, likely." Revan listens, heart tight. "If we send you back," the High Lord continues, "you would go as you are now. Mask, memories, scars. But you might forget us on arrival. The bridge might collapse behind you, or worse, it might stay open, and chaos could crawl both ways." The Inquisitor in black, a lord of his order, speaks for the first time. "This path protects our law," he says. "It removes an anomaly from our board. It gives you a chance to mend your original galaxy, but it risks contaminating our universe with whatever screams in yours." He looks at Revan. "And it leaves the tear over Vandemar mostly bandaged, not healed. We could not lean on you again." Revan feels the pull of home. Faces flash in his mind. Old companions. Worlds he left unguarded. Wars that might still burn. The High Lord lifts a second finger. "The second path is free agent," she says. "We let you remain in this galaxy on your own terms. You roam, you choose your battles. You answer calls as you will. You owe us nothing." Varro tenses. The Inquisitor Lord's lips thin. "A wild blade," he says. "You would save some worlds and doom others. According to a code only you understand. You would draw enemies and worshippers. You would start cults without meaning to. Civil war would follow your shadow." Saren's voice is calm. "The Ordo Malleus would have to hunt you whenever your choices threatened more souls than they saved," he says. "You would not enjoy that." The High Lord nods. "Yet the Emperor did not forbid us to consider it," she says. "He showed us a shape where you walk unbound, and sometimes your unbound choices catch threats our rigid codes miss. It is tempting." Revan can feel that temptation. No chains, no oaths, just a man with power and a small rule, going where screams are loudest. It feels close to how he once lived as a Jedi war hero, then as a Sith Lord. He knows where that road bends. The High Lord raises a third finger. "The third path is sanctioned servant," she says. "You stay, you serve, but under law and oath. You become a tool that knows it is a tool." Varro steps forward a little. "We would bind you to the Ordo Malleus and, at times, Ordo Xenos," he says. "You would answer summons to worlds where your stitching is needed. Warp scars, Xenos anomalies, things that do not fit our standard prayers." The tech priest adds, "You would be given resources, escorts, data, but your gate making would be restricted. No new tiers, only repairs, only under watch." The High Lord's gaze is steady. "You would lose much," she says. "Your freedom, your ability to go home on your own terms, but you would gain something too, a place in our war, a clear mandate, a shield of law. You would not have to pretend you are above our bloody arithmetic. You would share it. Silence falls. All three fingers stay raised. Revan feels the Emperor's distant attention, like the memory of a hand on his shoulder. The choice is his. This, the throne will not decide for him. They do not rush him. He stands in the quiet chamber, breathing. Return. He imagines stepping through a rebuilt gate, feeling his galaxy's force wrap around him again, seeing familiar stars, facing whatever came after he vanished. He also imagines chaos riding the gate back, tasting two universes at once. Imagines waking with his memories burned, not knowing what he did here, repeating old mistakes without lessons. Free agent. He imagines leaping from war to war, following screams, answering no one. He sees how some would call him savior, others demon. How his symbol would spread without any structure. How chaos would whisper to those drawn to his myth. How he would sooner or later be cornered by grey knights with orders to end him. Sanctioned servant. He imagines ships, orders, oaths, missions chosen by others, rules he will not always agree with, pages of conditions and thou shalt nots. He also sees Vandemar, little Lisa at her window, Canoness Elira's tired face, Colonel Lasco's scarred hands on a hollow table, Helion's steady vow to hold walls. He sees the pariah's last tear and word, Emperor. He had already tied himself to this war when he twisted Malkor's ritual, when he let the Astronomican's light run through his own thread. He realizes something simple. He does not belong to his old galaxy anymore, not fully. Too much of him is tied into this one now. He also cannot be trusted with absolute freedom, not by these people, not by himself. He lifts his head. I choose the third path, he says. His voice does not shake. I will serve, not as a slave, as a man who knows what his service costs. I will not ask you to trust me without limits. I will work within them. The High Lord studies him. So be it, she says. The Inquisitor Lord's eyes narrow, but he nods slowly. The Ordo Malleus will draft the oath, he says. I will sign it. So will Varro. Varro lets out a breath he did not know he was holding. Welcome to our nightmare, Revan, he murmurs. Saren inclines his head. And to our hope, he adds quietly. The binding is simple, but heavy. Later, in a private chapel with a stone floor and a small altar, Revan kneels. Before him lies a metal disc the size of a man's palm. On one half, the inquisitorial eye, skull at its center. On the other, a stylized, split mask and a thin carved line representing a thread, a new rosette. Varro holds it. By this seal, he says, you are named Legatus Externus to the Ordo Malleus, an external legate. You are empowered to act where warp anomalies and Xenos tears cross our laws. You may command Imperial resources appropriate to your mission, subject to oversight. His voice hardens. Boundaries, he says. You will not open new gates. You will not use your link to the Astronomicon more than twice in any single campaign without explicit sanction. You will not burn worlds as your first answer. He steps closer. You will attempt mercy where it costs little, he says. You will accept sacrifice where it saves many. You will never again choose the clean fire just because it is easy for your mind. Saren speaks next. You will not bargain with demons, he says. You will not teach the details of your Rakatan gate to any but those named in this writ, under Custodes' watch. You will accept a Grey Knight presence on any mission that touches your tier. Helion's voice joins deeper from behind. You will remember Vandemar, he says, and the pariah, and the little choices. If you forget, if you begin to speak only in numbers, you will find my fist at your throat. Canoness Elira, brought from Vandemar as witness, steps forward. She offers a small, simple thing, a strip of cloth painted with a tiny aquila and a star. You will remember hope, she says softly. If you let your heart become stone, your power will rot. If you must choose between a path that saves more lives but kills all hope, and one that saves fewer but keeps a spark, you will think hard. Revan breathes in. He takes the rosette in both hands. I accept these bounds, he says. He feels them settle. They are not chains on his body. They are lines in his mind, marked by law and by the Emperor's own faint approval. Varro pins the rosette to Revan's belt, next to his sabres. Rise, Legatus Revan, he says. Sanctioned servant of the Imperium. Needle on a wound between stars. Something changes in that moment. It shows in small ways. The half-broken mask on Revan's face shifts. The metal creaks softly as if remembering an old shape. Gold veins spread from the crack, tracing the outline of a tiny aquila over one cheek. His old symbol remains on the forehead, but now a double-headed eagle perches on its edge. His sabres hum. For a heartbeat, faint golden lines flicker along their blades, weaving with the blue and purple. Not enough to remake them, just enough to show they are now part of a larger pattern. The air around him tightens. His link to the Astronomicon, to the Emperor's beacon, settles into a new groove. Less wild, more like a cord tied at both ends. He knows, without being told, that any time he breaks his oaths in spirit, that cord will bite. He also knows that if he holds to them, the Emperor will not look away when he calls. The epilogue does not come as one scene. It comes as many small ones scattered across a brutal galaxy. On Vandemar Prime, the war slowly cools. The tear above the hive shrinks to a faint scar wrapped in light. Chaos warbands pull away, snarling. The Crimson Seraphs lose their apostle and their pariah and fail to claim the Basilica. They mark the world for future vengeance, but other targets burn brighter for now. In Hive Tarsis, the Grand Basilica of the Emperor's Wounds stands blackened but whole. Canoness. Elira returns tired and proud to lead a victory mass. Colonel Mara Lasco sits on a bench at the back, uniform patched, hands raw. She stares at a new fresco painted on the basilica's inner wall. It shows the Emperor in gold, hand outstretched. Beside him, in more muted colors, stands a masked figure in dark robes with twin glowing blades. A thin line of light connects the mask to the Emperor's hand. At the bottom, someone has written a simple title. The Stitcher from the Stars. Mara snorts softly. He's going to hate that, she murmurs. Beside her, little Lisa sits with her mother. She stares up at the fresco with wide eyes. Do you think he will come back? She whispers. Her mother squeezes her hand. If the Emperor wills, she says. Lisa looks at the painted mask and the little line between it and the golden hand. In her head, the stranger's simple code echoes in the way the priest retells it. He did not waste us. It is enough. On a warship of the Crimson Seraphs, deep in the Eye of Terror, a new Dark Apostle reads a torn report. An alien stitched our gate, he growls. He stole a thread from our book and tied it to the corpse Emperor's rotten light. He throws the parchment into a fire pit. The gods are amused, murmurs a bound demon in the corner. A foreign knife turned into a needle. A tool of a corpse, yet not born of him. So many ways to slip a finger on that thread. The apostle's eyes flare. Then we will pull it, he says. We will learn this Revan's limits. We will find a tear he cannot stitch without breaking his oath. We will make him choose between his petty mercy and his new master's demands. He smiles behind his helm. Everyone breaks, he says, even needles. In a quiet fortress of the Grey Knights on Titan, Sauron stands before a stone wall. Names are carved into it. He traces a new line with a gloved finger. Revan, he reads softly. Legatus externus. Status, watched, not yet judged. Another Grey Knight steps up beside him. You trust him? The brother asks. Sauron shakes his head once. Trust is not the word, he says. We understand him, a little, enough to stand beside him in battle. He looks at the carved stone. If he falls, he adds, we will understand how to kill him. The other Grey Knight nods. They both bow their heads. Until then, Sauron says, we fight on the same side. On a far segment of the palace, in a hall of mirrors and data, the High Lord who spoke to Revan sits alone. She watches a hollow of a thin line between galaxies. It pulses faintly, tied into the Astronomicon. We have tied a foreign storm to our dying sun, she murmurs. We have made a stranger into a part of our beacon. A custodian in plain robes answers from the shadows. The Emperor chose that risk, he says. We only gave it shape. She nods slowly. In centuries to come, she says, some will call this day the first turn of a new heresy. Others will call it the moment we learn to use a different kind of tool. She lets the hollow turn. History will decide, she says. For now, we simply live with it. On a fast cruiser leaving Terra's orbit, Revan stands in a small observation blister. Stars drift past. Terra shrinks behind them, wrapped in its ring of steel and light. Varro joins him, coat unbuttoned for once. Our first assignment is already waiting, the Inquisitor says. A listening station on the edge of Tyranid space picked up a signal. A Rakatan code fragment. Someone is trying to copy your gatework near a hive fleet. Revan's hands tighten on the railing. Then we stop them, he says, before they tear a bigger hole than I did. Varro nods. We'll have a small strike force, he says. Grey Knights. Adeptus Mechanicus. You, me. No worlds to burn this time. Just a station to save or silence. Revan looks at the stars. He feels the cord in his chest, tying him to the Astronomicon and to the scar over Vandemar. He feels the weight of his rosette at his belt. He feels the echo of the pariah's last word. He also feels faintly, like a piece of himself finally has a place. I will hold to the bounds, he says. I will stitch what I can. I will not draw the big blade unless there is truly no other way. Varro smirks a little. And if I order you otherwise, he asks. Revan looks at him. Then we argue, he says, hard. Varro's smirk fades into a tired smile. Good, he says. I need someone to argue with me, or I might start pressing buttons too quickly again. They stand together in silence a moment longer. Two men, one from a dead age of another galaxy, one from a dying age of this one, both trying, in their own broken ways, not to waste lives. On Vandemar, years later, Lysa lights a candle before a small shrine in a cramped hab. The shrine is simple, a chipped aquila, a hand-painted Star Knight mask with a gold crack and tiny wings. Below, a line of text. He came from another sky and chose not to burn us. Lysa is older now, a young woman in a PDF uniform. She checks her laser gun before she goes on patrol. Outside, the hive is still dirty, still loud, still under threat. But the basilica still stands. The scar in the sky is still small. People still remember the day an alien psyker fell like a meteor and refused the clean option. To them, that choice is a kind of miracle. She blows out the match and steps back. "Watch over us, Stitcher," she whispers, "and don't let the big people make us into numbers again." She smiles, just a little, and heads out into the endless war.